We are live. So we're here with the man, the myth, the legend, Ivan Beecroft in the Melbourne Ground studio.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Yeah.
I was looking for the dude you're talking about. It's like, where is he? He's hiding behind the back there, is he? Some legend. It's like, I didn't even walk in with that.
And that is real modesty, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell.
That's correct.
And as we know, my real name on my birth certificate is MG.
MG. You
So-
know those cars, MG? One of my friends had a, we were talking about buying a new car. And I said, what do you think of the MGs? And he goes, well, you know what it stands for. Mostly garbage. Ooh.
Well, thanks for that.
Sorry. Ooh.
Well, thanks for that.
Sorry. There goes all your... Anyone who owns an MG out there, There was a friend that said,
I had some people at my work, because I've been using my laptop for work.
Yeah.
And the display picture thing says MG. Someone was like, "Oh, what's MG?" And I kind of panicked. I was like, "Oh, it's just this thing," and then I just changed the subject because I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I got accused of being you know that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Someone accused me one night and they just wouldn't have it. I was just trying to convince them, like, no, it can't be me. I don't have time to do that. I'm a musician. I spend my time playing music. What do I want to do? Fiddling around with video.
There's even someone else who I've maintained the anonymity quite well. There's someone else who's quite a prominent person in the movement who I won't name, but they were convinced, drunk at a party. They were telling you they were convinced that MG is a woman and they'd met her.
Really?
Yeah. And
it's just getting more and more interesting.
that was pretty good. I'm just going to zoom it out so people can see my shonky
Who
backdrop.
is the famous MG?
Yeah.
Okay?
So while people join, we've got about 6 people, but it's about to shoot up. It usually shoots up pretty quick. But what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is we're doing an interview. We're just starting casually, but as you viewers know, people who have been watching lately, there's a documentary in the works, and we're planning on doing a sort of an overview of the freedom movement and the protest movement over the last year and a half. No holds barred, not naming any names or pointing any fingers, but just being honest about what's been happening. And one of the people I've spent the most time with, and one of the few people I absolutely trust in the whole movement, is my friend here, Ivan Beecroft. So thank you, Ivan, for joining us. And we got the cinema camera filming at the same time. The viewers can't see that, but the actual cinematic footage isn't going to have the shonky backdrop. So it'll the backdrop's cut out on the cinematic.
I don't know which camera I'm looking at. It's like, hi there, hi there,
You can-
hi there, hi
you can
there.
just
You
sort of
there,
look
you
at-
there, you there.
You just sort of look at me.
Just look at you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just talk.
Wow, yeah.
Pretend to be normal.
It's been an interesting association between yourself and me over the last couple of years. It's been 3 years now, isn't it? It's getting on 3 years.
Yeah, it's getting on almost 3 years, I reckon. Or about 2 years.
Oh, it's over 2 years.
Mm.
It's over 2 years, but it's just an unbelievable coincidence how we ran into each other that day. That particular day that we saw each other. We have that brief conversation.
Yeah.
And we were both down on that side of the road, at St Kilda there, and you just happened to be in the right place at the right time when things were going on, and being a witness to a lot of things that we couldn't really understand at the time, I guess. And I guess that's what we're doing here now. We're looking back in hindsight, because when you're stuck in the fishbowl, it's hard to understand who's doing what and why.
Yeah.
My end of it was kind of more of a cultural aspect because of music. Yours was journalistic.
Yeah.
It was more journalistic and I suppose video production.
Yeah.
And a YouTuber, I guess, which is like social media has never been my thing. If I wasn't a musician, I'd stay away from social media because it's full of maniacs. Not that you're a maniac.
Well, I am in some ways. I mean, everyone in this room is, especially my wife. No, just kidding. Would you like to say hello, Mrs. MG?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well.
Oh, we just gained a viewer as soon as you started talking. Nice.
See?
Hang on a minute.
The backbone.
Keep talking, I'll shut up now.
Keep talking.
I was just saying how I'm the backbone of this channel.
Yeah, that's right. Say something pleasant and feminine. Hey guys, nice to see y'all. I've been busy baking a pie in the kitchen, but I'll see y'all later. That wasn't her, everyone.
That sounded like South Park.
I don't know what that sounded like. Anyway, clearly high quality entertainment going on here. Smash the like button, guys, viewers. Please click the like. We got a few people in here now, and we hope that shoots up because we're gonna get onto some deep conversation.
Going some
Topics.
deep diving here.
Deep diving. We're going deep, folks. And so please smash the like. Paul Bartlett says, checking in now, unable to listen audio, but we'll play replay segment later on. Best to you. Best to you, Paul. So, Ivan, how would you say, because you've been warning people about a lot of the COVID lockdown stuff, and not using the word COVID, but you've been warning people.
Don't talk about the war.
Yeah, true.
I call it the war now.
Yeah,
it's the war. Like it's a conflict.
Yeah,
that's what it seems to be.
Good point.
And it's propaganda from both ends, as we all know. Like a view.
Yep.
Yeah. Continue. Sorry.
Well, no, that's okay. No, just well, why don't you tell the viewers how you first got into well, how do we term this? Because there are a lot of conspiracy theorists in the movement, and there are a lot of people who were converted to being skeptical of the government, based on circumstance. And then there's people like us who are sort of, I really think, somewhere healthy in the middle, but you've been aware of a lot of these agendas for a while. So how did you first when were your eyes open to this kind of corruption and whatever initially?
Look, probably well before 2020, from just being an independent musician, I'd actually kind of stumbled into different areas because I was promoting albums, and I was just writing songs that were against the status quo. I wasn't picking up, and I wasn't being all that specific lyrically. I was being quite vague because I had a funny feeling that if I was too specific, nobody'd be allowed to listen to it. So, and even then, I got shut down. Like I had an album promotion over there in Toronto from a bunch of guys that liked one of my tunes from a place called Independent Music Promotions, and I randomly sent them something, and it was quite accidental that they decided that they liked it and said, no, we'll promote it for you. And during that particular promotion, which I spent quite a bit of my own money on, because like you got to pay for it all yourself, that Facebook decided it. Probably from the start of it, because it's like a 3-month promotional campaign to get, blogs, articles. There was an article that got put in the Huffington Post and things like that went on, and they're not guaranteed. You know what I mean? They don't guarantee you anything, and it's just a matter of whether these publications, they get sent out and go, yeah, we'll do something with it, right? Well, right when that began, when that kicked off, I think it was that first campaign for the album, I had one that went for a single, and I didn't have that problem with the single, but with the album, what happened was, the album was called Whatever. It was the first one I decided to just seriously, I'll throw some money at this, right? And what happened was that from the very beginning of it to the end of it, Facebook said, sorry, you're not going to be allowed to be posting about it on your Facebook page. And they didn't give a reason, and there was nothing on that album that I thought was problematic as far as they would be concerned, and so they just targeted it for some reason. I have no idea to this day why they bothered to censor me, but that's when it really hit me hard of like, oh, obviously I'm a problem for these people. I have no idea why. I couldn't figure it out. I was promoting it under a genre that was like a cynical rock kind of genre, which I was kind of trying to promote and get other people involved in as well. And for some reason, they just kind of picked on it. And I thought, well, why pick on me? And kind of devastated me because I'd spent quite a lot of money. And not being able to, get that double up on your social media to promote articles and links and stuff was quite depressing, really. It was like, oh, okay, so you're gonna jump on the little guy type of thing, So that really got up my nose. That really irked me.
And that was before the online censorship had really cranked up.
Yeah, I think it was kind of at the beginning of it, you know, like,
yeah,
I think it had been going on, but I just really wasn't really in that space or really aware of it as such, you know, or take much notice because you're busy recording and worrying about all the social media stuff and all the information I have to give these guys. So it's a lot of workload, right? So you didn't get distracted with little things like that, you know. But that did get my attention. You know, that got my attention. It really got my attention because it really made me angry about it all. But you know, that was like 2018. Like you look at it, well before it really kicked off big time. And I was hearing stories, I guess probably mainly from the United States, about a lot of complaints coming from I guess in their political kind of space over there, that they were getting angry about it all. I think it was, you know, because Trump was in it 2016.
that's right. And,
Yeah. So I think when he came in, I think it was really kicking off then. Yeah, that's when it really started to crescendo. I guess it came to a crescendo.
It's interesting because the whole Trump thing is, and I'll just take a second. Hello, Melissa, Chris, welcome. Michael Brown, welcome. Paul, smash the like, everyone watching. We're really getting into it. The whole Trump thing is like, that's where so many people, myself included, really a switch was flicked on and we were woken up. Pizzagate and stuff like that, like hearing about all that, really woke up and shook a lot of people awake, those who were seeking the truth. But it's interesting too, because then so many of us who really were seeking the truth were then put off Trump completely with like Operation Warp Speed and stuff like that. So like everyone was simultaneously like given all this hope and woken up, but then towards the end of his presidency really demoralized and started to realize, wait a minute, this guy's probably part of the whole agenda, you know. I mean, he's pushing, and you know, we can't use the V word, but you know what we're referring to, and the viewers know what we're referring to. But I remember that episode where it was some talk where Trump was being interviewed by Bill O'Reilly on stage, and he's talking about how many boosters he got, and the audience starts booing him, and it's like, oh man, people have really realized the kind
I remember that.
Yeah.
But that talking about Trump, which, you know, I try and stay away from it because I think he's a very divisive figure.
Yeah.
You know, at first I kind of got sucked into liking him because what happened from my perspective is that election was probably part of the reason that kicked me up as well. That was, you know, another thing that made me kind of, it was a big slap in the face of when, hang on, something's not right here. Something's really not right here, because every single media outlet, every single mainstream media outlet was Hillary Clinton this, Hillary Clinton that. It's a sure thing. It's a sure. You know, they were so adamant that it was a sure thing that when he finally romped it in, there was commentary going around, and I tended to agree with them that these people that were commenting like that should have quit their jobs or given their money to the poor.
Yeah.
Because they were just they got it so wrong.
Yeah.
You know, so that was like, how could that be? Because they, you know, she was basically in.
So their corruption was highlighted as well.
Yeah,
and they're all still in their jobs. Like,
as far as I'm concerned, no, she's in. And then so when that spun around, it was like, hang about, something really fishy going on here.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't even, like, before Trump, I was kind of into like some weird esoteric conspiracy theories and like some sort of abstract stuff here and there. But then even, you know, of course we all of us who are like awake to what's going on, we all have a little complex inside of us where we think we're like the person who knows it all and we're the person who's enlightened and whatever. But now that I look back, I think I, like so many others, needed something like Trump in that election to be in the public eye to really shake me awake and make me realize just how corrupt everything is, you know?
Yeah.
And that was part of what brought me to faith as well, in a long roundabout kind of way. It was Trump's half-hearted God talk that started me thinking maybe there's something to this God thing too, because this guy's obviously the savior of the world, so therefore blah blah blah. And then of course later I realized he's, you know, probably part of the scam too. But anyway, Was there a question in that? No, I don't know.
Oh, no, it's interesting that it's interesting that there's some good that I guess that whole episode, with Donald Trump, if that set you on that sort of a path, and then
yeah,
I think there were some things that worked for the better. There were some things that I think that he did, especially the thing that I like that he did when he coined that term fake news. I think that was one thing that I look at him and I went, okay, I don't really trust this guy, because my wife was a full-on Trump hater. She's like, he's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Because I think she probably caught maybe too much of The Apprentice.
Yeah.
and just did not like the persona, on The Apprentice, which is what's
Your
like. Go on, do the impression. Go on, do the impression.
What's I can't
what's wrong
remember
with you?
his
You got
lines.
emotional problems or what?
I actually can't. On the spot now. I can't remember.
All right, we'll have to rehearse that one, folks.
Yeah.
We'll get that one down. This is just a bit of dip the toe in the water type thing.
Well, what's interesting is, and Mrs. MG has a similar story, that learning about like Pizzagate and then all of that like ritualistic child abuse and satanic stuff. First of all, that puts you into like a depression for months. When you learn about that kind of stuff for the first time, you learn that it's real. You learn the depths of human evil and depravity that are possible, not only possible, but happening around the world right now. But then for me, that led to a good thing. God makes use of these situations. And I eventually realized there are enough rich, powerful, and extremely intelligent people worshipping the devil.
Yeah.
That if there's some truth to that, because they must be worshipping something real, then there must be some truth to the other side, the Jesus side. And that was when I really started to think, that because I was raised Christian, and then I'd become an atheist.
Yeah.
And then learning about that evil, what was Mrs. MG says, you go so deep down the rabbit hole that you find God.
Yeah, that's happened to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Went deep down the rabbit hole and found God on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way, but I did see some, during the period of the last, 2.5 years, down here in Melbourne, on the steps of Parliament there, when they had that extended protest that was going on there, that there were some pretty radical conversions that happened on the steps there. And then there was a Monday night men's group that I was going to. That was just a bunch of Christian guys that were just getting together on a Monday night. It was just kind of happened randomly. And I don't know how, I had someone on my Facebook that knew an old drummer of mine, and that's how I stumbled across this thing just accidentally, and I was needing a bit of, company to kind of process what was going on with all these lockdowns and all the bombardment. I'd have to say propaganda, not so much information, but that constant bombardment of propaganda that was probably sending a lot of people insane, because it's kind of driving me insane. So I needed to kind of connect with other folk,
Yep.
And I saw some on those Monday nights there, just in a short period of time there, I just saw these absolutely dramatic and radical conversions right in front of my own eyes, of people just bowing down to God just because they were just so broken.
Yeah.
The situation had broken them so hard, and to watch it go in front of you, what it did to me was kind of reestablish your faith, like it was being tested, to its limit. I would have to say it felt like it was to its limit. There was no possible way that you could probably see it through. And I actually feel sorry for the people who really don't have that kind of faith, because I find it kind of fortunate in my own self to know that, like, the only thing that could probably see you through such an intense type of situation was to be able to lean on that.
Yeah.
The same thing, something possible. So it kind of brought me back into that space where I was kind of felt like I was maybe cruising along a bit.
Cody makes a good point here in the comments. Christians never waste a protest. I wasn't born again when I started this channel, and I remember I thought I was a Christian, and I remember seeing my fellow Christians come and go from the protests and leave because the gospel was more important and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, like, who are these people who, you know, they think, why don't they stay and blah, blah, blah. But I realize now that the gospel is the most important thing for me and for anyone. And it makes sense now that I'm actually born again, now that I've actually had that change in myself. But there was this kind of revolving door of Christian groups that would come and go from protests, praying and spreading the gospel and preaching the gospel and kind of showing that real light of God in there. None of this like new age light of Lucifer, but actually
it was like a kind of a pragmatic part of it, but there was like the presence, you know, like the physical presence of those folk that were there. You know, I remember being around a lot of them. I remember probably being associated with them quite a bit. Like it was uncanny when you'd be in those crowds. That you'd always end up connecting. There would always be these, I would call them probably divine appointments. You know, like our association. You know, I've always described as that. You know, like I've described it. It's uncanny that you happen to be at certain places at certain times and did certain things in kind of tandem with what I was doing at times, but not even thinking. Not even thinking about the hand of God involved in any of it. Really.
Yeah, we've got to talk about that too. Some of the crazy. I'll just reply to a couple of comments here as well. We got so Justin a Bubble says, "Who's the guest and what band is he from?" Well, and a couple of people don't know. We've got Ivan Beecroft here, guys. He's played at so many protests. How many protests do you think you've played at?
Oh, now you got me.
Very roughly. 50?
Well, it depends on what you call. Like some of the bigger ones I played on the back of the truck at Flagstaff, you know, so you probably have been talking about at least 6 to 8 times on the bigger ones.
Yeah.
But then there was all the times at the steps there when I was there probably every second day.
Yeah.
Playing there, and at night sometimes we'd be playing there on the steps. You just randomly kind of show up whenever you could, you know, and I'd take this battery operated speaker. But if they want to get information about me, just tell them to go to my Instagram, and I've got a link tree, and you can go and look up all my music that's been published and promoted, you know.
Actually, you know what?
Only in the States and
put that in the chat. I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. And I've been in plenty of bands, but none of them have been known. I haven't been in any bands that have probably made any name for themselves.
Well, we've discussed
independently myself. So.
In terms of divine appointments, one man band, you're playing at the protest movement and really spreading the truth musically that way has got to be part of God's calling for you. Do you think about that?
No, because I was going to stop. Like, I think before COVID, I'd had a few experiences with some people in the record industry that were just, you know, got conned out of some money and was treated pretty poorly. You know, like these people would show up from major labels and that, and they were only interested in stealing your money. So I just got kind of fed up with it.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem like it was heading in any positive direction. I was kind of disillusioned. I think I had this kind of disillusionment, and I was looking at that point before 2020 came along that I promoted all these albums and done what I really wanted to do, and that had taken its course, and it had taken quite a lot of energy and time off my hands, you know, and it cost me a lot of money as well. So I was kind of a little bit disillusioned about that, and at the end of all that, I was thinking of just calling it a day. I think for a while, I don't know really what I wanted to do. I was just taking a break. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. I just was having a hiatus. I wasn't inspired to do anything. I didn't care about it. You know, I was just having one of those moments where I just, you know, just kind of throw up myself. I'm sick and tired of this kind of nonsense that's going on. You know, I don't seem to be able to progress. So it just was frustrating. So, and that's when COVID hit.
Kind of happened at the perfect time, didn't it?
I did, because I promoted an album that year, but I wasn't, you know, in 2020 I put out an album, and I did promote that one, and I had one the year before, and I think some of the blowback from that, you know, I got there was a few things that happened, you know, during the promotions there that were just, Yeah, that's okay. Let's say they were quite nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was kind of getting a bit sensitive too. You know, you're doing it all yourself. I was a little bit sensitive about certain things, you know, and I was paying for these promotions. And it was almost like I was paying for people to bag me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was kind of insulting, and I think it was degrading. It was this kind of degradation that came with it that I didn't like, and that's why I just got fed up with it. And then this war came along. The war came.
Yeah, the war of the government against against its own people.
The war came, and then I couldn't do anything else but sit in your room recording music.
Yeah.
So, because in a way, that's where I come up with that song that you put out. You did the film clip for.
Yeah, which I've just pinned in the chat, by the way.
Yeah.
Ivan and MG's music video, guys. If you haven't seen it, this was 1 year ago now.
Is that all?
Yeah, on the November the 15th, 2021. So it's actually more like a year and 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
So 14 or 15 months ago.
Wow, crammed a lot into that time after that.
Yeah, I encourage you all to check out the music video pinned in the chat. City Monk, thanks for joining. Thank you. Shannon Beale, Liz F, welcome everyone. And guys, if you have any questions for Ivan, Ivan's played at a whole bunch of... Ivan's played at more protests than any other musician. I would confidently say that. You were playing all the time when there was no music at all. And you were there when we were still like, you know, people were too scared to come out because of the police and everything. And if any of you guys have questions for Ivan, for anything he's seen at protests or any of his thoughts about anything, if you just put them in the chat, and I'm seeing them, and if we don't reply to them straight away, we'll reply to them all in one go. So if you've got any questions, I encourage you to please pop them in the chat and smash the like button, guys. So
don't forget to smash the like button in a really bad American accent. Get on my horse.
Exactly.
I'm gonna ride into the sunset. I'm gonna smash that like button. Right, go on, do it. Go on.
So
we're gonna have a little bit of light-hearted banter here because
of course
we've known each other for so long. And
can you roll your chair that way?
And
that way.
This way.
Yeah, that is perfect. Absolutely perfect.
And I'd just like to say a few good words about MG here and the man's wacky sense of humour, which quite appeals to me.
Pay attention, people.
Pay attention, people. This guy's got a wacky sense of humour. He's really wacky. I think it's fun. And we're going to have a bit of fun with the wacky sense of humour.
Amen, brother.
Amen. Brother. Hang on, do it again.
Oh, we got a good question already. How do you keep your sideburns even? What's the trick?
What's the trick?
What's the secret?
Apparently someone on Twitter a couple of months ago said, "Oh, he's off to wax them." So there's an option. Yeah, they reckon I'm waxing these things. I'm like, I'd like to see that. You know, like
why
that'd be painful, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah. Why would you bother waxing? Like, that's so much work and pain.
I tell you what, if these sideburns could talk, they could tell a story. You know, they actually started off not like this. They started off going down there at the start.
You got a compliment. Daniel Lawson says they are a pretty awesome set of sideburns.
I got accused of being Hugh Jackman, you know, down at Phillip Island there the other week. So a bunch of 13-year-olds were walking past, you know, about 50 of them, and one of them turned around, "Hey, it's Hugh Jackman." And I'm like, oh yeah, much better looking dude than me.
Here we go. City Monk, who we both know. He's a gentleman whose name is a secret, but starts with an M, and he's MG2. He was my housemate for a fair while.
Oh, yeah.
So that's City Monk. Welcome, City Monk. City Monk says, "Ivan, not sure if you covered this. We did actually, but that's okay. But how long have you been aware of the evils in this world, which have shown themselves very clearly in the last 2.5 years? And how do you keep your joy?"
How do I keep my joy?
Good question.
Well, I only just discovered evil when I woke up this morning. I caught the project.
Yeah. Well, feel free to talk about that because someone in the chat asked about that earlier.
Did they?
I
Yeah.
haven't seen it. But...
I'm just joking around, but just give me a moment to gather my thoughts, because like I was converted quite some time ago, after my dad died, and that's you're looking at over 20 years now. So it's been a very long time for me, but I was well aware of it, when I first started playing in bands. I just felt this undercurrent of darkness there, with some of the bands that, I was associated with. They were kind of the rock metal scene in Melbourne. And I was like the support act in this one band I was in. And they used to do some things, like whilst taking copious amounts of drugs and hallucinogenics and stuff. And they would indulge in this dark stuff. But that was probably one period where I started to realise, there's this undercurrent of darkness that I didn't really enjoy. And I don't know how I kept my joy. It actually had nothing to do with me. My joy doesn't come from me, and it wasn't generated out of me. If it was up to me, I would have just sank down into despair. That joy doesn't come from, I can't generate it. It's got nothing to do with me. It's actually through God. I can't experience it through myself. And it's the only thing that's really kept me, in moments like you'll have a dark night, but you wake up the next day and the sun will come up again. And you always know that you'll have your dark moments, but you won't get destroyed in amongst that dark moment. So I don't know how other people have coped without God. I don't understand how they can do it. But for me, I had to be down at that lowest point in my life, and then something dramatic like your father dying suddenly kicked it off. But I was already well aware of, well before that, I'd kind of been through the court system, and, I think when I grew up, where I grew up out in Dandenong Way, there was a lot of brutality that went on there. There was gangs of guys walking around. Like one of the first bands I was in, we were like this little punk band, and we were just, like a relative, my brother and his older mates, because I was the youngest. And that's when I started to kind of wake up, about 15 years old, and you're seeing people getting the living daylights absolutely beaten out of them, at times, on Friday nights and Saturday nights during that period. And that's when I started to realise, like, wow, there's something pretty bad going on. And I remember one night someone hit me with a house brick. I was out one night and a bunch of guys attacked me and two other friends in Noble Park. And then, we'd been drinking and stupid stuff. But it happened so innocently, like a bunch of guys were really, really drunk, and I think someone had actually laid into them. And when we ran into them, they were asking all these questions like, who are you? And we're being, cheeky to them. We were saying, oh, I'm Huey, that's Stewie, that's Louie. And they went back to this party and told this party that we were the ones that bashed them, that had roughed them up a bit, And then this whole party came out and attacked us. And being drunk, I just grabbed the garden stake and started swinging it at people. And then someone picked up a house brick and just knocked me from the centre of the road onto the nature strip, So I think after that little knock to the head, I've never been the same since. But no, seriously, after that knock to the head, I think I started to realise there's something pretty bad about it. Like someone tried to kill me. They didn't care whether I died or not.
Yeah.
And then the police were questioning me as I was getting into the ambulance, and they're asking me who hit the other guy. They didn't care too much about me, and I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm in there swearing at them, They're telling me to stop swearing while I'm sitting on a stretcher being loaded in an ambulance. They're going to hit the other guy, and I said, never mind the other guy. Why don't you get the guy that hit me?
Yeah.
And they weren't really that interested in it, So nobody was held accountable to it. So I started to realise, that something's really not right about this place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's only one of many experiences that that I was growing up with, and you're only a teenager, so you're pretty impressionable.
So that's kind of even deeper than the question would have been about sort of what we were discussing before about the agenda and lockdowns and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I think your answer is actually way better, because it's like, it's such a fundamental truth that humans are not inherently good. That's such an important thing to understand about this world that we're on, that we are corrupted and sinful.
Yeah.
And that coming to terms with that in a healthy way can only be done through Jesus. Because, there are plenty of cynical, pessimistic people out there who are aware of the evils of the world, but they lack the understanding of how that started with original sin and everything, and how there's a reason why goodness only comes from God. And there's a reason why, I was halfway there when I was an atheist because I realized that I was selfish and that everyone else was selfish and that we're all pretty selfish scumbags in some way or another. But I kind of didn't understand the other half. All I knew was that it was a dog-eat-dog world. But that's really interesting that you discovered that through being someone trying to kill you with a brick.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good way to
Oh,
learn
look,
that.
I've always been fascinated by I guess, you know, if you've studied the Bible, and I did some pretty intense studies before the war came along at a local Seventh-day Adventist church around the corner, and they were really good. You know, a lot of their Bible studies were fantastic. You know, not that I'm grew up as a Seventh-day Adventist. You know, my mother was a Methodist, a Sunday school teacher, a Methodist, and I was brought up that way. But I went into these Bible studies, you know, and there was always this kind of thing, or like there was this mystery, like, and that always fascinated me. This, you know, the unknown, you know, and the mystery of lawlessness, and the mystery of God, things that you're just never going to know, right? And the mystery of lawlessness always had me fascinated, you know. And I remember I went to a counselling session. You know, I was having some problems with a family member, and I was so angry at them that, you know, they brought me to the point where I couldn't deal with my anger, so I went and spoke to a Christian counsellor at the church I happened to be going at the time. And in this counselling session, you know, this guy really solved some massive issues, you know, but just by this one comment that he made. And that one comment was addressed, you know, the evil of the world. And he just basically was wrong, because this counsellor, he used to go, he was describing to me like what he did. He used to go into the prisons, and he would go into the prison and he would talk to people who had just got a long sentence, and then he'd come back and he would minister to them. And he was describing some of these experiences to me, you know, in amongst these sessions, which was really, really cool of him to do. You know, he didn't really need to do that, but it all became kind of part of that session. And he just described it as yes, we live in a fallen world. And he just made this offhanded comment, and it kind of stayed. It was like, yeah, you're right, that it is fallen. There's something definitely fallen in this place, you know. And that's what we contend with, you know. And I think the Seventh-day Adventists used to put it as the great controversy, you know, the great controversy between good and evil. You know, they had that thing in their doctrine through someone, through Alan White. Yeah, through Alan White. And that was one thing that they had, and to try and understand and come to terms with this fallenness, this fallen nature, you know, that we try, like what Paul said in the epistles. He said, I struggle because I want to try to get things right, but I just can't. I can't manage it.
I do what I don't want to do, and I can't do what I...
Exactly right. That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
It's such an important verse for new Christians as well, because with being born again comes a grief at your own sin, but the sin doesn't necessarily stop. And you know, Christians generally sin less. I would confidently say that. Real born-again Christians generally do sin less. But we don't become sinless. We become a new creation that is intolerant of our own sin. So our nature is righteousness, but our flesh's nature is sinfulness. Yeah. And so hearing someone like the Apostle Paul, you know, wrote a third of the New Testament, or 2/3? The apostle to the Gentiles, huge amount of the New Testament written by the Apostle Paul, and then to hear someone like him, who you would assume is peak righteousness, apart from Jesus, but then he says himself as well that he is daily frustrated by his own sinful flesh that he just can't seem to rid himself of. And that's so important. And so important for non-Christians to understand as well, that we Christians aren't going around high and mighty saying we're better than you. We're just aware of our own sin and of your sin. But being aware of your own sin doesn't mean hating yourself, and God doesn't want us to hate ourselves and loathe ourselves like that. But this misconception that Christians are high and mighty and that we think we're better than everyone else, it's like, if you're a Christian and you think you're sinless, then you're either very, very misguided, or you're probably not born again, because, you know, yeah.
Or we just missed the second coming.
Yeah. That's a scary thought.
Just kidding. I thought I'd add that in, but anyway.
Yeah. Oh boy.
It's just kind of, I don't know, the more life goes along, the more you realise that you have a misconception of yourself. And I think Paul addressed it in the epistles. You know, to sort of not think too highly of yourself, but not think too lowly either.
Yeah.
And to head in either, and have this kind of balance that goes with it. And I think that's a big struggle that I've come across all the time with a lot of people that I've been associated with, in different groups.
Yep.
That having a view of yourself that's inaccurate. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of a blessing to be able to have an accurate view of yourself, even though it's a constantly evolving thing, as far as I can see.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I've been through, and I love this kind of feedback. Janet says we are not perfect at all. Boxeroo, hello chat, hello. Liz F says I needed to hear this right now. That's gives me so much joy. I've gone through cycles of like constant condemnation since being born again. Various types of sinful thoughts and actions that you try not to do, and then you fail, and then you try again, and I'll get angry or overreact, or I'll be judging or not forgiving or this, that, the other, and so much of that condemnation comes from the devil. This happened with my brother as well early on. The devil jumped in because he wants to ruin the joy of our salvation. He wants to ruin our walk. He wants to make us hate ourselves. He wants us to think that we're failures, and he wants us to give up.
Well, he wants to steal. Basically,
still killing,
basically stealing what God's given you. Stealing the blessing, stealing anything good. I think that tends to be the motives, and tends to be the action. Well, I guess the action of an adversary, and accusations, the accuser, all the descriptions of an adversary. Like I had some interesting experiences, with that, because when I was playing in one band, we had some really big drug issues in this one band. Like before my dad died, I think it wasn't probably during when he died, and I had a problem trying to stop doing certain things. Like I wasn't taking anything that was, like heroin or anything like that, but I was doing enough. Like I wasn't just being recreational like what I had been when I was younger. It was more, became a little bit more serious then for some reason, and I don't know why. Maybe because I was working in factories, that it was kind of everywhere around you, and it became kind of a culture. And I found it very hard to stop. And every time that I did stop, it was almost like I'd crawl out of the pit, and there was always someone there to grab me and drag me back in. Right to the point where every time that I did stop, even for a period of time, I would even get these really awful nightmares. Like I remember I had this really awful nightmare one time when I'd stopped for quite a while. And I'd tried so many times to stop. You're talking about like not just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you're doing 4 or 5, maybe longer. At times you would stop, but then you'd start again, then you'd stop, and then start again, and then you'd get, and each time you'd feel worse, right? And then finally the last time when I did finally fix the problem, I was in bed one night, and something grabbed me. Like it felt like this really ugly looking, devilish looking, demon looking thing just grabbed me by the feet and was pulling me out of bed. And I could actually feel it while I was lying in bed, and it scared me so much that's why I went to this counsellor that we were talking about before. And this guy prayed for me, because I just was open about it. I just said, this is what's happened. You don't think I'm crazy or something. Because there will be people that out there will look at you and go, you're on drugs, of course, so that's your problem. You've gone a little bit loopy from it. But as far as I was concerned, I felt that there was a spiritual problem, and I thought I had to go and find a spiritual answer for that spiritual problem. And the only thing I could find was this guy. And when I went there, he said this one prayer for me, and from that point onwards, it stopped. And then from that point onwards, I haven't had a problem since, even though the temptation's always wandered in the door. You know what I mean? There's always been someone to wander in the door and try and tempt you again.
Just out of interest, like on that that entity and that experience, were there any other incidents similar to that with, like, do you feel like that entity was following you and harassing you for a while, or it suddenly showed itself when you started to try to get sober, or like what?
No, I think it, from memory, because it was a while ago. Yeah, I think it just showed up that moment.
Yep.
When right at the right point where the problem's about to get solved.
Yeah.
It was almost like a last ditch effort to just, nah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, let's fill him with terror so that he goes and tries to drown it out or something.
Yeah, well, I've had, like, I had a friend who had a similar experience, but he was an alcoholic.
Yep.
And he got the DTs. And so he found alcohol very hard to quit because he drank so much that he'd go on a week bender, and he would drink until his kidneys would start to shut down. And he was telling me, I was saying to him one day, I said, you gotta stop doing this. It's gonna, it's gonna kill you one day. And he said to me, he goes, look, I can't. I go, why? He goes, because every time I stop, I get these DTs. And he goes, I just can't deal with them. And I said, these DTs are just so bad.
That's the only withdrawals of any drug that can kill you.
Is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, like people quit heroin and have the most horrific times, but the heroin withdrawals can't kill you. But alcohol withdrawals are the only withdrawals that can kill you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he'd been doing it for a while, so
yeah,
and he knew there was something not right.
Can I ask, like, I don't know if this is a comfortable question for you, but when do you think you were born again?
When did I think I was born again? Well, I certainly felt something after I got baptized.
Yep.
But I didn't think that I was properly born again because I didn't really understand what I was doing.
Yep.
I was grieving my father, and that whole, like, I remember it very well. I got invited to these meetings, a non-denominational church that my wife knew this guy that she was working with. And he was probably one of the smartest guys that I knew. And I think that's the reason that he influenced me, and he brought me to this meeting, and they did the altar call probably I'd only been going for about a month or so, and that was during my drug problems. And they did this altar call one night, and I was adamant that I wasn't going to stand up for any altar call, and then I saw all these people looking at me. I'm like, what are they looking at? And then I looked down and I'm like, oh, I'm standing.
Yeah.
So somehow I ended up on my feet, and I stood up and accepted, Christ there and then. And then not long after, they ended up baptizing me, and then I had a huge falling out with them, after about a couple of months, I think. And then I went off into like a wilderness type situation. So I wouldn't say I felt probably a Holy Spirit filled Christian at that point. I actually felt the exact opposite. I felt like that God had condemned me.
Maybe that's an interesting, because do you think, is there a chance that is when your nature changed and you started to become aware of your own sin in a more visceral kind of way, like the way that a born again believer is, like the way that a new creation is, just in the sense that all of a sudden you're convicted, you're worried about your sin, you hate your sin. And was that a new way of perceiving it for you that kind of wasn't always like that before, or? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, that's fine. I'm just thinking back, because it was quite confusing, because I don't know, like you stand up in an altar call, right? And you've accepted God. And I think there was this I guess naivety from me of not realizing what I'd just done, and the ramifications of it spiritually, and what the effect of it would be, and that it kind of reminded me of that movie, Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
Of when they turn someone as a vampire, and it's really painful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When they did turn those guys, if you've watched that movie, I've got it at home on DVD, and I can kind of draw the comparison. I don't like to, but that was my experience, from that it was quite painful and quite confusing, because I didn't realize that there would be kind of some, well, I thought they were negative, but as it turns out, not really. That's all part of the journey when I look back now, but and I guess it made me stronger, but it was very painful. Like I remember thinking to myself, what have I just done? Like, why? Like, I lost a lot of friends, like, lost everything, you know, like, lost a lot of friends, job, everything. I was kind of left there pretty much with nothing. You know, I think I didn't lose with my marriage at the time. And, yeah, so that was quite painful an experience, and I didn't understand it fully. I at the time, it was very confusing for me, and I don't know if I turned away or what. For a while there, because I was so confused, I didn't know who to turn to. Yeah, so it just was weird. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. Yeah, that's all I can say at the time. But now it does. Like, if I look back now in hindsight, I go, okay. Obviously, you know, there were things there that had to be dealt with, and had to be dealt with in such a brutal fashion. Otherwise, I was never going to be part of God's plan.
Yeah.
In other words, he does what he does with his clay, doesn't he? Like, he does, whether you don't expect it this way or that way, or it's going to be pleasant, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be hard, it's going to be easy, you know what I mean? And plus, you know, when you're naive like that, you expect, oh, I've just given my life to God, everything should be rosy, because that's what the world was telling me. In other words, I'd been conditioned to this perception. You know, my whole perception was just in that few weeks. I can honestly say my perception of God changed, and I didn't know what to think. Not until later on, until I started to appreciate what had occurred, because it wasn't long after that when a lot of problems did get solved. After that, you know, after that initial shock. So yeah, and it's not your usual conversion when you talk to people, because a lot of them aren't that as confusing as mine was, you know, because they kind of had a bit of I guess preamble before it, which I didn't.
Well, I mean, like, Mrs. MG and I both were born again in our own separate ways after a demonic experience, like intense demonic experiences. And I've seen a lot of testimonies out there like that. But then I've seen also a lot of testimonies of just peaceful conversions that people have gone through where, I mean, you know, and I think God knows what we need, and God knows how to bring us on board, because we can't make it happen. We can't make anything happen, you know. So some of us need that kick in the pants of, like, being dragged out of bed by a demon. You know, some of us, that's what it takes to wake us up. Some of us, me in church, you know, I had a demonic spirit, you know, rush through my head physically twice, and then I caught it on recording. I've got an audio recording of it happening. You know, Mrs. MG was terrorized in her home by something that was, you know, attached to a dream catcher, and the dog could sense it and was growling at it, and she caught it on camera.
Yeah, you can see the eyes.
We must be three pretty bloody stubborn individuals in this room, because that's what it took. You know, that's what God knew it would take for us to actually wake up. See you, Cody. Thanks for watching. Cody says, loving your testimony and witness, Ivan. Man, I wish I could stay with you guys. Got to step away. God bless you, Ivan. Very much enjoyed your talk. Good night, all.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. But then, you know, you have people who have their testimony where they hear the audible voice of God saying something like, trust me, and that's it. That's all they need, and they just break down crying, and they're in awe of God and his presence and his love, and that changes them. Other people, you know, have got testimonies where they're with someone and that person prays for them, and then it just happens. You know, like, there's such a range of testimony, but the things that seem to be consistent are a fear and awe of God, which comes afterwards, a love of God, which comes afterwards, and then a love and understanding of Scripture that is stronger for some than others. I mean, I still have to kind of force myself when I read the Bible, but when I read it, I get so much out of it, and I love it, you know.
Yeah, it gave me a desire, you know, in recent times to go and try and understand things that I would always wanted to. Like, when I first read the Bible, not long after I converted, I could actually reading it before I got converted, and I read the book of Romans. And that's not like an easy book to take in if you don't understand it, and if you're not got the Holy Spirit, you know, like But what I find amazing about it is, even I read it, never understood it, the words went in.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? They went in and did something, even if I didn't understand it. And then at later dates, when it was needed, it would pop out, you know.
Mm.
You know, I remember not even being able to understand a word of the book of Revelation, I mean, till recent times. And when you study it, you find the connections to other books like the book of Daniel and things like that, you know, the uncanniness of, and always like, because out of the curiosity of trying to understand the times, that's the only reason I was doing it. I wanted to know, I was that curious. I think I'm probably a bit like you that way, that I want to understand things. I want to know how things work. You know what I mean? I've worked in factories with, you know, like with conveyors and stuff like that, and I'd like to see machinery go, you know, like that part does that part does this. It's the same with God, you know, I want to see why things work the way they work. I want to know why that book, why that's connected to that, and where are we?
Yep.
Where are we in this particular time, you know?
Yeah.
And when you discover certain things like that statue in the book of Daniel, you know, that Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
It was a dream, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar did in a dream.
I'll bring it up while you talk.
Yeah, bring it up, because once you get the understanding of that, it does give you a little bit of sense of urgency when you know what times you're living in. You don't know exactly, but you can understand it from that particular Old Testament scripture.
Yeah,
because it's not as if it's a mystery, because it's pretty well explained in it. You know, when you read what Daniel says about the dream, and it describes, you know, the different kingdoms. And anybody who knows history knows, you know, like every single one of those kingdoms, you know, from the top to the bottom of the statue, it comes down to the last kingdom.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, that whole.
And how accurate it is in order. It's actually in order of kingdoms, of which one at which time. It didn't say the exact date, but it was in the exact order anyway. And when you realise that they've come and gone already, and that you're at the last part of that statue. It's kind of it's very sobering, you know, to know that, you know, at this part of time, you know, when you look around.
Well, and there are some interesting elements too, like the feet. Well, should I read out? It's Daniel chapter 2.
Yeah.
Should I read it out?
Yeah, read it.
So, to those who are watching, I mean, countless people, like around the world, over the last 2 years, have felt that something is different in the air. And so many people, without really knowing what they're talking about, are starting to say things like, we're in a spiritual war. But so many people don't actually know what that means. And some people are turning to the new age or being scooped up by that. Some people are turning to, well, various bizarre and different wide-ranging systems and religions. But we firmly believe we're adamant that the truth is in the Bible. The truth is in the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel and the prophetic books. And countless people around the world right now, to you who are watching who are skeptical, I promise if you seek the truth, this will happen with you too. Countless people around the world are being woken up and born again through the sheer amount of things in the book of Revelation that are playing out point by point, exactly as they were written. And the prophecies in Revelation are coming true. Everything's going crazy around the world, but it's happening in a calculated end times kind of way. Including, this is Daniel chapter 2. Daniel interpreted dreams that King Nebuchadnezzar would have. And this is Nebuchadnezzar's dream about the statue with the different sections. So I'll try to read this quickly without rushing it. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, "The thing is gone from me. If you will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill." So he's saying to his magicians and astrologers and everything here, if you can't tell me the dream I had and the interpretation, I'm going to cut you to pieces and turn your house into a dunghill.
I knew I should have took up pottery.
And reminded of viewers that Daniel is the prophet of the Lord, prophet of Yahweh, who is in captivity in Nebuchadnezzar's court, but he has the favor of King Nebuchadnezzar and he's treated well. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it." They're like, "Please, king, just tell us the dream at least." The king answered and said, "I know of certainty that you would gain the time, because you see the thing is gone from me. But if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation thereof. If you can tell me what the dream I had without me telling you, I'll know that your interpretation can be trusted." The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, "There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show it before the king, except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch the king's captain, "Why is the decree so hasty from the king?" Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Thumbs up, Boxeroo. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. And a reminder, prophets in the Old Testament were very harshly judged by Israel. The law of Moses stated that if a prophet made a prophecy and it did not come true, that prophet was therefore a false prophet. One failure and you're a false prophet and you're put to death. So it's a risky business, it's making prophecy for God. In the Old Testament, but Daniel was such a genuine prophet that there's a whole book about him. Anyway, Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me now that we desired for thee, for thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter." Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, "Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation." Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, "I have found a man of the captives of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation." The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, "Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof?" Daniel answered in the presence of the king, and said, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Latter days. Key term. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. All right, here we're finally at the dream, folks. Thanks for bearing with me. I didn't realize that first bit was going to be so long. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of my heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head, and by image he means statue. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven he hath given unto thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. So he's saying you, Nebuchadnezzar, and your empire, Babylon, are the head of gold. And after thee shall rise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom, that's the silver shoulders, another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Do you remember which is meant to be which? I know the shoulders are meant to be the Roman Empire, I think.
I've always thought the iron was meant to be the Roman Empire.
So,
because the last one to me was the Roman Empire. It's the last one.
Yeah.
That's the last one of the go.
Here we go. Wikipedia 2.
I have to go back to the study that I did. That I had it. I had all those references to which was Medo-Persia, what represented which one, but I know they're in the right order.
Yeah. Most modern scholars agree that this is just Wikipedia.
Yeah.
The four world empires symbolized by the statue are Babylon, the head, the Medes, arms and shoulders, Persia, thighs and legs, and Seleucid Syria and Ptolemaic Egypt, the feet. Jewish scholars interpret the mixed materials forming the feet as the kingdom of Rome alongside kingdoms under Islamic rule. The concept of four... No, I don't buy that one. I think this is a blue-pilled Wikipedia interpretation, because I've heard here we go. All right, Mr. T's smashing it out. G'day, Hazel. Here we go. Oh, there's some great comments here too. I've got to catch up. Gold helmet Babylon. Iron equals Rome, not debatable. Sounds good to me. Babylon, Persia is the shoulders. Greece is the next piece. Then Rome. And so this is where it gets interesting. He says in this verse earlier here, like, so shall it be. Verse 28, Daniel 2, verse 28. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. And the latter days is the time just before the end times. So most people really who are paying attention to what's going, most Christians really who are paying attention to what's going on in the world today, realize that at the very least we're in the latter days. We believe that we're in the end times.
Yeah, definitely.
But the interesting thing about the final, the feat of clay and iron, a friend of mine who's a tradie said that basically is a kind of like a symbolic. Iron and clay are major materials in concrete. It's kind of like we're in the concrete age now. This is the final part of the statue. The feet is now, and there's great weakness and some great strength. That really, really clicks with me. But long-winded me hogging the mic way of trying to say to some of the viewers that this is one of the many things in the Bible which is just scarily accurate about what's happened in history since that was written, but also about what's happening now.
Yeah.
I always read it differently. Like, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, but I read it as with, you know how society's gone through different ages, like the golden age, and then we've got the bronze age, and now
that's true too.
And now we're up to the iron and clay, which is like the transhumanism movement, mixing like robots with humans, sort of thing. But yeah, it could be either way. Could be multi-dimensional.
Probably a few analogies out of it, I guess.
Well, they both fit because the materials of the statue get weaker and weaker, or less and less glorious. I mean, it starts with gold and then just goes downhill from there. Gold, then silver, then
It's really interesting that you look at the structure of that thing, like what you said. You had a gold head, and it's only held up by feet of clay and iron. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it seems like the materials, of the bottom of the statue aren't stable, like any foundation.
Yeah.
Like if you're building a house, you need a good foundation, and it seems like that statue wasn't built on a good foundation, which is a fallen world,
That's such a good point.
It's always like like what Jesus said, if you build your house on sand, you don't have a good foundation.
Speaking of Jesus, I've heard, and again, I can't quote who this was, I just heard it and it made sense. So if you're in the comments and you have a better understanding, please correct me. Verse 34, thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. So a stone cut out without hands flies in and smashes the feet of the statue, making the whole thing crumble down.
I know what that is, don't you?
Jesus.
The
cornerstone.
Right.
Exactly right.
Right.
The one that got rejected.
Right. Praise God.
There's a whole song, like, we used to sing that song, there's a song called Cornerstone.
Yeah.
They used to sing it at the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And I love that Freemasons, for example, corrupt that with their
the capstone, like with the capstone.
And their symbology of cornerstones as well, and archways, and like part of their way of pretending to be Christian and also trying to like make everything that they bloody touch satanic. The ignorance of.
Are we gonna move on and answer some questions now? People probably dozing off waiting for.
Well, we're actually the viewers are increasing as we read the Bible.
Really?
Just happy to see it. We were at 16, now we're at 24. Thanks for loving the truth, people. Just had visions of the movie Flashdance with the steelworks. Okay. Has anyone got any questions for Ivan or anything? Blue Eyes says Catholic Prophecy 3. I don't know what 3 is, but Jews have to convert en masse before the end. Well, that's an interesting thought. Well, I don't know.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know about that.
Here you go. City Monk asks, what's your plan for the next year, this year? What do you want to be doing?
At the now, TNG.
Do you?
What do I want to be doing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think still got a lot of music.
Yeah.
There's still quite a bit of music that I've had that I've recorded that I haven't really had any time to do it because I've been out playing it. And I guess I wouldn't mind putting out another album. There's a couple of albums. I've got another one under the rock category, and there's another one that's a little bit more adventurous, more I guess lyrically adventurous, that I didn't really have any place for promoting, you know, in amongst what I was doing. And I haven't been in touch with the company that I was working with in Canada. I haven't really spoken to them since 2020. So, and I haven't really said much to them about what my plans were, because I didn't really have any plans. I was still playing a lot in my room and practicing a lot for going out and playing events and learning a lot of songs that I never had a chance to play live. And I've been playing in a local bar in the corner. In Hawthorne, there's a local bar in the corner called the Nevermind Bar, which is really cool because they allow you to just try out new songs and stuff, you know, in front of small audiences with their little stage area, and you know, and it's just full of kind of creative people. So that's been a nice experience to keep my hand in playing live. So that's probably what I'll continue doing. I'll continue to just turn up there, you know, when I feel like it. At the moment, I'm just had a few weeks off where I wasn't really doing much at all because I had some family issues, you know, in interstate, and I've had to travel interstate to go and deal with that. And later on this year, there'll be a few other things attached to that, which will probably take up my time and energy. But other than that, I don't have a great deal of ideas. I just go in and do it at a whim.
We'll do a music video.
Well, we could do that too. Like we've talked about another one.
It'll definitely happen at some point.
I haven't managed to be able to catch up with you guys because I haven't been around. And I guess we could probably do another video.
Yeah. By the way, good comment here from Hazel. So good to have you back, Hazel. Welcome. I didn't know you were a Christian, Ivan. I've been out of touch with the freedom movement lately. Anyway, it's good to know you know the Lord.
Oh, thank you. I think it's good to.
Yeah. Any other questions for Ivan? Anybody? There you are. Can you hold that up? We've got Ivanception. Classic. Here we go. Mr. T says most freedom fighters are. Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, I don't know what the percentage of the freedom movement is that's Christian, but I know there's a lot of disturbing New Age stuff, and that we plan on covering a lot on this channel. And my friends, if there's anyone still watching who is virulently anti-Christian, please stick around. Please stick around, because we're not trying. We don't want to be an echo chamber here. We're trying to speak to non-Christians about this stuff, because that's what it's all about. I mean, we can sit here in our echo chamber and learn stuff as Christians already, but we want everyone to know the truth. That's the whole point. So if you hate Christianity, the more you hate it, the more I want you to stick around. So please stick around. And Richard McLean, hi MG, your thoughts on the exact timing of Daniel's prophecies pertaining to the end times? I have an interesting thought on that. You know how everything's counting down to 2030? Well, in the Bible, the tribulation period is 2 sets of 3.5 years back to back. And in the first set of 3.5 years, you've got the 2 witnesses who rise and preach the gospel and whatever. And the Antichrist rises and tries to kill them. And after 3.5 years, he manages to kill them, but they don't get killed. They get taken up to heaven, I think. And then the second 3.5 years is where the image of the beast is resurrected. It's not the beast, it's not the Antichrist, but the image of the Antichrist, which a lot of people think is going to be a clone or something, or a zombie. Anyway, and then 2030 is when everything's cranking up to, well, it's 2023 now. We've got 7 years until 2030. 3.5 plus 3.5. So I personally think it feels right. I think the tribulation is starting this year. And 2030, I mean, depending on your pre-trib, mid-trib, or post-trib rapture, I think I'm...
I've got friends who we constantly having debates, you know, in amongst that, in amongst the pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib kind of philosophy. And
Yeah.
I've always come to the conclusion that, you know, like we had one friend of ours who was always making dates.
Yeah.
Like, oh, please don't do that.
Constantly
you're
wrong.
you're gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
A bit like the pre-rapture type scenario, which
Yeah.
I don't buy into, because I just think it's you just setting yourself up for
Disappointment.
for disappointment. Yeah, which I think it's
I agree.
what I think it's really for. Why it exists, you know, to demoralize. That's
Yeah.
what it seems to be to me anyway. That's my perception of it. But I try not to get hung up on it, because like
It's an unnecessarily divisive
look, when you
debate.
see people coming and going, you know, in your life, you know, you see people dying, and you know, you lose people, you just realise that it's so quickly, you know, like it can happen so suddenly. So you're probably best off not to get too hung up on that, and just more be concerned about where you're at, and whether you've, you know, made your I guess put your spiritual affairs in order. That's what I was thinking in 2020 when the war came. When the war came rocking in my door unexpectedly, uninvited. Actually, I didn't invite it. I didn't like it, but anyway, the mindset for me for all that period before I ran into you was to that was always a constant thing on my mind of like, I think we better get our spiritual affairs in order. I think it's time to make sure any things that we haven't dealt with, we need to deal with now.
So many
Probably
people
better off to deal with it now than tend to be caught. And like that dream I was telling you about, it kind of shook me up a bit. You know, I had this dream probably maybe through 2019, and it was like I missed out on it. I had this dream that Jesus showed up, and I just was not ready.
Yeah.
I was just, and it was horrifying for me. It was like one of those dreams you just wake up and you go, oh no.
Yeah.
It's like missing that boat, you know, that like you turned up and the boat had already arrived, and it left you, it's gone.
Oh man.
And you just, and the realization that was final. You weren't going to get a second chance. So that was kind of a weird kind of feeling when I wake up after a dream like that. So you know it's got something to do with spiritual things if you're feeling that way, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of like the dream I had about that experimental thing that's going around.
Yeah.
You know, the experimental thing.
Yeah.
The experimental thing, yeah. The experimental thing that came with the war.
The Jabba the Hutt.
The experimental thing that came with it was there was you know, post-war. the post-war thing.
Yeah.
Right. We'll describe it so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I remember describing it as a dream I had right before that even happened. You know, it was probably months before everything started to really kick off. And that's when they're putting all those things at supermarkets. You know, all those sites. You know the sites for the tests.
Yeah.
And I remember having this feeling every time I drove up to the shopping centre and I'd see the thing in that sign, and I'd have this inward kind of, don't want to go near that type of thing. You know, I didn't want to go anywhere near it. I had this dream probably maybe a little bit before that, where I was looking down at my feet and there was this little kind of worm-like thing, and it was like a snake, but it was tiny. It was like only like, you know, about that long, and it crawled up to me. And it just went in between my big toe and my other toe, and it got into that space in between it and started burrowing itself in. And I'm looking down, and what was going on, I could feel the heat start from my feet and gradually rise up through my legs, up through my thighs. And then once it got up to around about nearly stomach height, chest height, I felt this guttural scream, this scream that is like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it was like this thing took me over from the inside. And I wasn't going to be, I had this feeling in the dream that, oh no, I'm not going to be what I was. This thing's just taken me over and I'm become something different. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's why when I woke up after that dream, I went, well, I really don't want to go anywhere near any of what's going on. You know, call me paranoid, but that's one of those dreams you never forget, you know, like shook me to the core. It shook me, that feeling of like, oh no, I've been taken over by something. And you're not what you're going to be. It was just horrible. It's horrible. It was a horrible dream. It's like a night. It was like a really awful nightmare. Probably the most awful nightmare I've ever had in my life.
C-Mark asks, when did you have that dream?
Oh, just trying to think when I had it. It would have been either late 2020 or early 21. I don't know. I can't know. I don't know the exact date. Like I can't think of the exact date of when it was. I just remember the dream, and I remember it was before everything really started to roll out. Before I even realized, I think that was going to occur. I think
it's such an accurate, like there's so much symbology in that dream. Like
I had a thought when you first said that the snake was next to your feet. Remind me of that Bible verse that we have the authority to step on serpents' heads, and I don't know. It just reminded me of that. So like, it just reminded me that we have the authority to like, not take anything that we don't want to from government and anything else. And
because I took it as a warning. I took it as a warning well before the fact. I know it was well before the fact because I remember telling it to a few people, and I think we'd already been through one of the lockdowns. I think it was probably during the first lockdown we had. I can't say for sure, but I think that it was around about that period of the first lockdown we had here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And that's when I had this reaction. When I'd see those sites, I'd drive past them and I'd feel ill. I kind of feel physically ill and kind of angry at the same time.
You and me seem to have the same reaction to sites of spiritual significance. Like we get a feeling. You've described stories like when you've been in a place and something's just off, you have to get out of there, and it just feels you get that sick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because this is where I get kind of kooky and Pentecostal, but I really,
Speaking of kooky, like I thought some of the things that I've experienced, I tell them to people who like I can basically only tell them to you, because a lot of other people don't really understand. People don't know, like in the music industry and stuff, like because they're really in a different space to me, and a lot of the times they tend to avoid me. Like I remember after I got baptized, there was a guy I knew who was in a band that was really big in the 80s. I'm not going to name him because he'll get pretty upset if I say anything about him. But I saw him a day after I got baptized. Didn't say a word to this guy, Didn't say a word at all. Said nothing, but something within him knew something wasn't quite right that day. When I rocked up at his place, we're having this conversation. That was
spirit in him is reacting to the spirit in you.
Exactly right, but the conversation was bizarre because we were speaking about music and just stuff that we normally speak about. Because I'd known this guy for quite some time. I'd been associated with him and a lot of other friends in that particular social group. And just out of the blue, it just came from nowhere. It was like, I worship Satan, like that to me. And it took me by surprise. I just went, I was speechless for a second. I didn't know what to say. And then the only words that could come out of my mouth were this. And I don't think they were mine. I think they came from the Lord. It was like, why are you doing that for? All you got to do is not make a choice.
Yeah.
And then the conversation went away from that. I went back to something else. It was just this brief moment. Yeah, where it just went really weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And he just reacted to me, and I guess like there's this reverse reaction to you when you come across these folk, in amongst it. Like there are people talking about now. I saw Alex Jones come out the other day, and he was talking about how they openly worship the devil, in the music industry. And if you look at the Grammys, I think it's hard not to look up and go, I think he's right.
Oh,
when you look at that whole show that it was like, wow.
We were talking about that and how the camera cuts to the celebrities in the audience, and even they are disturbed. And even
I didn't watch it long enough to see that.
They have this look written all over their faces that, in my opinion, strongly says, "What have I got? I've picked the wrong side. What have I got myself in?" Oh,
is that what you saw?
That's what I saw, and because they know, and they've just spent the last 2 years pushing the Jabba the Hutt, causing countless deaths and ruined lives by pushing that thing. We all know what I'm talking about.
So you think there was a lot of regret in that audience?
Because they can sense the same thing that everyone else can, that something in the air has changed, and we're in a different part of history now, not just in terms of a different era, but like we're running out of time. Everyone on Earth is running out of time. Don't you feel that? Or I don't know. I keep putting words in people's mouths.
I'm quite a bit older than you, so I guess, you know, I feel it probably a little bit more so, you know, especially when I've, you know, like watched people die in front of me, you know, like since I was 15, I've watched people pass away in front of me, and I've always felt that time was kind of short ever since I was younger anyway, and to make the most of every single moment. Otherwise, that's the way I've always lived.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I haven't lived to gain any sort of physical things as such and amount to that, because I know full well that, you know, like one of my wife's, one of my father-in-law's friends in Tassie, he had a favourite saying, and it was really interesting, kind of ironic he used to say it, because he was probably one of the most wealthy people we know back there in Tassie. He had a lot of stuff in cars. He'd always rock up in a new Beamer.
Yeah.
And then his favourite saying was, I don't put tow bars on hearses. And he'd be driving off in some brand new car saying that to us.
Yeah.
That was one of his favourite sayings. So yeah, I find that fascinating.
We've got there's some great comments to go over, and this is one of the great joys of these live streams, considering that this is the best viewership on the internet. Hazel says, what did I miss out? Were you guys just reading the Bible? We were. That wasn't the plan of this stream, but we were. Anna Barrett says, Revelations speaks of these times. Yep, it's true. Janet, thanks MG and Ivan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Warrior Nun, OMG, good point. OMG, good point, MG. I wish I knew which point you were referring to, but I appreciate the praise.
Hey, it's
either way.
Hey, it's IBMG.
IBMG.
OMG, MGMRD.
Ed says, hey guys.
And Mrs. MG.
Oh, here we go.
I've got to mention Mrs. MG.
IBMG and Mrs. MG.
Say that really, really quickly. So there you go.
IBMG, Mrs. MG. Is that right?
It sounds like indubitably.
Indubitably. Richard McLean says a good point. The witnesses get killed by the Antichrist, but are brought back to life after 3 days.
Yeah, that's correct.
Anna Borrant says guillotined. That's, you know, the big fashion houses. I think it's Chanel designed a guillotine.
L'Oreal?
Someone was saying.
Yeah.
Oh no, Chanel. You're right. Yeah.
They're like, why do? It's so evil.
Balenciaga also had guillotine imagery in there.
There you go. Yep. Balenciaga also had guillotine imagery in their ads.
Chanel did as well, I'm pretty sure.
So disgusting. Anna Barnes. Now this comment I'm about to read is music to my ears because everyone is so damn hopeful. I'm sick of it.
Yes.
All right?
Where is the nihilism?
Yeah,
we
that's
want
right.
Nihilism.
People, we want a sober-minded acceptance of the terrifying facts of our current reality. That will bring you closer to God, I promise, and that will make you fearless. So stop being so darn hopeful. So that's why I love this comment so much. Anna Borrant says, prophecy will be fulfilled, ... Things will get incrementally worse. You guys are like, why are you excited? But that's it. Why are some of us still expecting things to get better? Because everything's happening according to God's plan written out in the Bible, and things ain't going to get better.
I think it's a good thing when things get worse in the world, because then it wakes more people up, and that's the most important thing, getting them to know the truth. And
well, I've renamed our country now after all of what we've seen in the last 3 years. You know what I'm going to call the Great Southland at times?
What?
No offence to anybody who's been fed the myth that, you know, Australia's this easygoing country that, you know, everybody loves around the world because we're just such, you know, humanitarian types. You know, our government are just such wonderful people. I call it Circus Oz. You know, you've got the
Circus Oz.
You got the you know, political trapeze artists bouncing around the place. You know, and then you've got the media clowns around sticking crackers in little kids' pockets, you know.
Yeah.
Bang! You gotta take that one, you little punk. Anyway, I just thought we'd have some light banter to break up the whole seriousness of all.
If you let me, I'll make things very dark.
I'm a candle over here.
That's good.
We said before we started this we weren't gonna go into tragic seriousness. Is it into tragic seriousness? You know, so everybody, all the listeners, hang on. cross your arms and start looking serious, because we are getting serious here. Buckle up.
Well, my arms have been crossed this whole time.
MG, buckle up, because MG is going to take you on your spiritual ride.
Woo!
Come for Melbourne Ground's spiritual ride.
That's the...
I'm doing a bit of shameless self-promotion here, because, you know, being in the music industry, you know, they kind of belt that into you, you know, promote.
Yeah.
And then when you stop, you go, what did you stop promoting? Why did you stop promoting? Keep promoting. Why?
Keep promoting so we can make money off
Well,
you.
I don't like being shameless. Shut up and keep doing it.
Welcome, have faith. Good to see you. Hazel says, well, we do need to put our hope in Christ in spite of these things happening. Which leads me to the point was my next point, which is that tribulation is okay, all right, surely someone in this room knows the verse about tribulation being a good thing and instilling hope in us as believers. Adversity.
I think is it that one about persecution?
Persecution.
I don't know exactly what it is, but basically says through persecution.
It builds faith and perseverance, long suffering.
Long suffering.
All those things that aren't all that enjoyable when they happen. You know, like, I mean,
here we go.
I remember I was listening to a sermon by John Bevere. My wife hates John Bevere because she reckons he's screaming at her through the CD player, right? Like, she goes, who's that guy screaming at you? You know, it's like, it's John Bevere. She goes, oh, John Bevere again. But I remember him saying, be careful what you ask for, you know, like if you're in prayer and you ask God for something, you know, because if you ask for something like, I want a bit of extra faith.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have to go through some long suffering to get it.
That's right. If your life's comfortable and you're sitting there on your Xbox eating pizza and there's nothing hard really happening, you may be a believer, but you're sitting there and life is easy.
I'm losing this round of Mario Kart.
Yeah,
that's building my faith, because I really suck at Mario Kart.
But if you're no, we're getting bad buffering. I hope you guys can hear this. If your life's too easy, you don't grow. Romans 5:3-5. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost which is given unto us. Amen.
Amen. Well, it reminds me of a story that I read about Wesley. Remember Wesley?
Yeah.
And he was like, I think he used to do these kind of evangelisms where he'd go from town to town. And he was riding a horse there one day, and he wasn't being persecuted, because he used to get persecuted from place to place. And he's riding along on his horse, and he's thinking, oh, I haven't been persecuted. I think I mightn't be in the right place now. What's going on here? You know, so he jumps off the horse, gets on his hands and knees, and, oh, God, forgive me, you know, what have I done, blah, blah, blah. And then halfway through the prayer, some farmer comes out and throws a brick in, and he goes, oh, beautiful, and he gets back on the horse. Back in the right place. Yeah.
Wait, is that true? No.
I don't know, that's a story.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And there was another comment for you, Ivan. Now, where's it gone? And guys, can you let me know? Melissa Phyllis says extremely prophetic. What's prophetic, Melissa? I'd love to know. That sounds cool. Michael Conray, always remember the word meek means to be smart, wise, and strong when needed. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. Because we are meant to be the salt of the earth. We're meant to hold back corruption, and you can't do that by just letting yourself be constantly persecuted. So there's a middle ground in there somewhere. What do you think, Ivan, about what do you think we're called to do as Christians when it comes to standing up and taking action? Like, how much action do you think, and Mrs. MG, if you have any thoughts on this, please share as well. How much action do you think we're supposed to take as Christians, and how much are we supposed to just put up with?
Yeah, well, that's a very, very good question. And I find that very difficult to answer. And just give me a second to gather my thoughts on that.
And maybe
because like actions have consequences. So depending on which battle you're gonna, which hill you want to die on, is dependent on what's around, and those decisions have come through, I guess, wisdom. And I guess if you want to make good decisions, you need good godly wisdom to go with which battle you need to fight, which evil needs to be addressed. I guess when the light is there to expose those deeds that are done in darkness and in secret, and I guess maybe that would be one way of doing it. And how you do that is on an individual basis. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Depending on what you come across in your pilgrimage, I guess you call it a pilgrimage. Is depending on what you need to do. If it's I guess if it's something that's immoral, and I guess it's not going to be good, and you know that it's evil.
So we're not supposed to go out and be, violent revolutionaries for a good cause.
Well, I'm kind of conflicted on that one because of, like when you look at because of the Old Testament, like you had Joshua and certain characters in the Old Testament. So I'm a little bit conflicted about what action you need to take. I would certainly say that, I wouldn't let someone walk all over you and stand up for yourself. But I certainly didn't think I was born to have people tread all over you and treat you however they like, and make you worship at the feet of them. That's not something that I would do. But I guess depending on the circumstances and depending on what they did, if it's a violent incident, and I guess if you see someone being attacked, I guess you're obligated to step in. Or, you're obligated to do the right thing.
Yeah. I guess there's a difference between defense and offense.
Well, there is, and plus violence.
Quick one. Hazel's leaving. She says, "Sorry guys, I need to go and actually read my Bible. I'm up to 1 Samuel and then get ready for bed. Thanks, MG, Ivan, and Mrs. MG. God bless you all and good night. Catch you all next time." Thanks, Hazel.
Thanks, Hazel. Have a good night.
Please go on. Sorry.
What was I saying again? Did you leave that growl on the roof?
Defense.
There's people knocking at the door. Have you know? Okay, they're going, "You guys, what are you doing in there?" Sorry. Little bit of
defense and offense.
Like interlude music. Pythoness joke.
What about?
Up to you. Right.
Wait a minute. Here's some.
I would say, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Like you remember when Peter was in, was it Gethsemane, and he chopped the guy's ear off, and Jesus said no. But that's a very complex situation because he was meant to do what he was going to do. Yeah. But it certainly wasn't approved of.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And plus the misconception that, they thought there was going to be a revolution, the apostles, I guess the disciples, were under the impression that Jesus came to take back the kingdom. Yeah. And they didn't realize it was the spiritual one. They thought it was kicking Rome out. Yeah. And they thought it was going to be I guess if you're going to try and kick Rome out, they were probably looking at Jesus going, well, we better get the army together and start grabbing swords and start. Why aren't we practicing, how to slaughter these people? Yeah. And they didn't.
Like the zealots.
Yeah, like the zealots. Yeah, exactly right. So,
use your...
Oh. Hang on, doing my best Snoopy.
I'll just zoom out so you can see more of that. All right, go on. Can you do that again? Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Ivan Beecroft.
Come on down. This is your life.
All right. So we're on a really deep, important topic here. Mrs. MG, were you going to add something?
Oh, I was going to add something, but I just thought...
we ruined it with our silliness.
Random silliness.
Yeah.
Random silliness.
It's good. No, what were you going to say?
I just thought that this comment was interesting. If you want to...
Okay. Adash says, "I try to live by Jesus' teachings already, but there are too many coincidences that the Bible may have been twisted by man." Oh, I'm so glad you brought that to my attention. Adash, very good question, very good point. There are over 400 Bible translations right now in the English language. Most of them are corrupted. Most of them are absolutely unacceptable departures from God's word. The Bible, the scriptures of the Old and New Testament are inspired by the Holy Spirit, divinely inspired, written, penned by man, but basically written by God. And Ivan, we haven't discussed this, but I personally am now a big believer in the King James Version of the Bible as the best English
Funny
Bible.
you should say that, Mr. MG. I've got an interesting experience I had up in Canberra, when we were up in Canberra protesting, right?
Yeah.
I was up on the back of the truck there doing my one song performances one particular day up there.
Yeah.
So I went up there a few times, can't remember which time it was, but anyway, I had my guitar case tucked underneath the truck because it was sun. I didn't want the sun to get onto it. Like, after I finished, I get down off the truck there, and I'd always wanted a King James version of the Bible because I always had my English. I already had my English version, and I gave my NIV to my sister-in-law.
Thank God for that.
Who was into Hinduism, so I gave her the NIV, which is probably not.
At least it's better than Hindu.
That was when I didn't realise I should have been getting into the King James. It was a better version of it, but the Seventh-day Adventists used to always recommend it to me anyway.
Yeah.
And so you should be reading it.
They got some red pills, the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah. So anyway, someone left one on my guitar case that day. And I read out of that now.
Amazing.
I'm reading out of that now. I won't read out of the other one. And I realise that, there's so much difference in the wording. Like when you just change words and things and you use a different word, it is a big deal. You can think of how it can change the meaning of a sentence.
And the amount of even so, there's two great. We've been smashing red pills on the King James version for the past couple of months, and I'm a big convert to. People get saved from other Bible versions, absolutely, and it's not like no other Bible works, but there are two great points here. Anna Borrant says New King James is also good. I used to think that, and a lot of people do think that the New King James is good. Unfortunately, it's a massive lie. They say the New King James is just the King James but without the these and thous. It's actually not. It's got countless... Jesus Christ is demoted every time he's mentioned in the New King James Version. If the King James says Lord Jesus Christ, the King James says Jesus Christ. If the King James says Jesus Christ, the New King James says Jesus.
That's still marginally better than the
Mormons
one.
Yeah. Wait a minute. But there have been studies of the language of the King James versus other translations, and they find that the King James is actually, some people think, the easiest to read, which is hard for people to believe. The other point, there's another great point here too from Mr. T. He says the infallible version is only the original language, Koine Greek. I disagree. I'll tell you why. I've studied Greek, and I've had an insight into the unbelievable beauty and depth that comes from learning Koine Greek to read the Bible. And I believe that is, if you can do it, if you have a skill for languages, if you can learn ancient common Greek, Koine Greek, do it for sure. It enriches your experience, but God knows what we need, and God has provided for us English speakers in the King James Version, because most people aren't that good with foreign languages and can't really learn something like ancient Greek. Yeah. It's an impossible expectation.
I always find it handy for certain terms in the Bible to get the Greek version for that a particular word. Not for everything, but there are some words that are good when it comes to the Greek interpretation of it. It does expand.
It gives a huge.
It gives you an expansion of it, which I find pretty handy.
100%. Yeah. So that's. Anyway, if we go on about that topic, we'll be here for another.
While we're on the topic of words, the corruption of words, in modern times, like throughout the last probably 100 years, I remember thinking about the word. There was a sermon someone did on the word humble, and this misinterpretation of what it actually meant, because everyone thinks humble, they just think, humble yourself. Well, it doesn't really mean. Today's interpretation of it is far from the truth of your humble man, because remember when Moses said he was the humblest, he proclaimed that he was the humblest man on the earth at the time. I know that's pretty egotistical when you think about it, but it just meant he was the one who was closest to God, because he actually went up and got the commandments. So that's what he was talking about when he talked about the word humble. So it's been absolutely corrupt.
Yeah,
so And you're talking about in the church, people, when they hear the word humble, think something different as to what it really should mean.
Yeah.
Once I realised that, I went, oh, well, and they had to be pointed out to me of like, when you read it, just like, boy, Moses is, a little bit up himself. It's not the guy,
Humble brag.
You give someone some 10 commandments and what? You think
Mr. T, it's not just translation errors which make the other versions of the Bible corrupt. It's actually the original manuscripts that they're taken from. There are corrupted lines of manuscripts that go all the way back to only 100 or 200 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah.
Which the actual group of manuscripts and the line of manuscripts that's used in the King James is uncorrupted. But the New King James brings in even Gnostic manuscripts and things like that, which are just like pagan history goes into some of these other Bibles. Countless verses are removed, words are changed unnecessarily and suspiciously. Meanings of verses are completely changed and often turned up on their head. But on top of that, there has been a simultaneous agenda in the New Age and in the Bible translation committees to water down the Bible. And also in the New Age, they're bringing in soft Christian terminology to try and blend the whole thing and get us all ready for the Antichrist and the beast system. So, for example, Hare Krishnas now say, they refer to Krishna as the Lord, because it sounds Christian and it brings Christians in. Just like that George Harrison song, I really want to know you.
Yeah.
We were talking about the other day. It starts off with Hallelujah as the chorus bit, and then later in the song he changes it to Hare Krishna, and he's on record as saying that song is designed to lure in Christians and deceive them and make them open up to Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
So, but that's the stuff going on with Bible translations is crazy. I'll recommend a book to you, Mr. T, called New Age Versions. It's a bit of a weird book, but it's a crazy 7-year research undertaking where they compared all the different Bibles, the different English Bibles, and compared them word for word, the manuscripts they came from, the histories of the people who translated them, a lot of which aren't even believers, a lot of which are actually New Age practicing, Yeah. Not to mention there's an agenda in the occult to corrupt the Bible, and what's happening with these other translations is perfectly in line with that agenda. People like Madame Helena Blavatsky and Anne Boisson, these old occultists and Freemasons and stuff are all like on record saying we're going to corrupt the Bible by doing this, and this, and that's exactly what's happened.
I just would like to know what they think when they read that bit sort of towards the end, about changing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They read that and go, boy, they read that last little bit that's full of condemnation, for people who change. They're like, well, that's the first thing to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What were you
going to say? I think we should change the topic. Well, I got a new topic for us, right?
Yeah.
We'll move on.
Going into.
We'll just move on a little bit. Well, we wanted to talk about certain things tonight, and I think I want to talk about Wiley Darley and what happened in the last. Is it last week?
Let's get into it. Tell me.
Let's unpack because there's something in what was said in that panel, right?
Yeah.
That I find really funny because I was reading through comment sections today. I was reading through the comment sections of.
Can we take a very quick intermission and then talk about it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then I'll kill this for now because we've got 2 hours of footage. It's too much to do anything with anyway. So kill that now. We'll just quick bathroom break, ladies and gentlemen. Stick around. We'll be back in under 5 minutes. God bless you all. It's chocolate time. That's still on. Here, I'll mute it. I'll mute it for a second. Oh, no, you know what? I'll play some elevator music. Actually, no, you know what? Wait a minute. I'll play some copyright-free elevator music.
I've got an extending cord. Hang on, unplug this. Can I plug this? Hang on.
Yeah.
This is your powering down.
The devil is also Lord, Lord of hell. I don't trust when people say Lord or God. Saying Jesus and Yahweh is more direct. Nice, Adash. Nice. Oh,
Yeah, well, that's who some of these occultists call. They call their God. They're not talking about Yahweh. They're talking about Satan.
Yeah.
And they trick people into thinking that they're Christian and they're not.
They even use the capital G or the capital C when referring to that.
Oh, thanks. It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I'm not going to you. I'm going to you. Why? Ever heard that thing of the Spanish fly?
Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back after. We'll be back to discuss the project after we make it. We're going to make a cup of tea, have a quick break,
and several moments of whimsy.
Yeah.
Woo.
Please enjoy this this music in the meantime. See you guys in 5 minutes.
I feel like doing a waltz.
Come.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to return.
I'm like searching up like all the things about New Age and then going to try and debunk them and show how it's like all the same as yeah. But we also wanted to not only because one news as well as the protests as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like a political statement or something.
Yeah. Because like I had a experience before I went back to be honest with Buddhism and that book again read it. I found that it didn't solve anything, so that's why I headed back to the direction of Christ, because it didn't solve the problem of sin. They have all these wonderful, great philosophical things that you probably find in Proverbs. Yeah, I mean, it's like John Wood Proverbs. Like I said, people do the wonderful things, they're essentially like but it didn't address the problem of sin at all, which I found, I thought, well, what's the point of it?
Yeah, exactly.
It was a good book, but it was a good book, but didn't really solve anything in my way.
Yeah, it's like the Band-Aid on it, kind of.
Well, this is just kind of a fluffy thing, you know, I'm not good with that stuff now. I guess like a lot of people go to the extra time to think, I don't know.
He breaks it off.
No, he's celebrating partly because he needed these things because he was into it. So he's lost. And more influence on him than he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he was married as well, which is like weird enough, like burning stuff and throwing stuff, throwing lots of things, washing feet and coconuts and milk and whatever. Yeah, it was bizarre. It was like, no way we were thinking it was not long. Just there was a lot of things with the guy who did it, ringing bells and stuff like that, you know. You throw rocks on a fire and stoke his fire and throw leaves and whatever and ring a bell intermittently and then people have to go up to the day and do the prayer and come back again and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I'm like, this guy is really, you know, he's made a job for himself, but who's going to remember how to do it that way? And who's going to actually challenge him because the people that were there that were all into it, family members, and spoke to it, didn't even know where they should have been standing at times. Because you have to be standing in certain places and provide do this and then they couldn't remember what to do. And that's their tradition, though, because it was so complicated. It was a really complicated world.
Everything else is so complicated. It's like, the gospel is just so simple.
Well, the message of the gospel is,
All right, guys,
and
we're about to return.
forgiveness. The good news. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Oh, Spanish is.
Tequila.
It makes the face look huge. You know what I mean? It makes the face look huge. Bulbous. Well, we can't really do anything about that. Oh yeah. Feel better?
Sí, música. Es música, musicatos. Así. It's Speedy Gonzalez. We're coming back now. We're coming back to talk to you. Because the Pussycato, he's funny.
I do not know what that's about.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special something.
You're gonna need a seat, aren't you?
Well, I've got 2 right-handed gloves here.
You're gonna need a seat.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Hmm.
I'll sit there.
Alright.
Okay, Mrs. MG, what do you reckon?
Do I have to move across?
No, you can stay there. It's alright.
What you can see there.
What do you reckon?
You're cool.
Yeah. This isn't going to last very long. It's way too hot.
Well,
Okay.
Why do you have to have the jacket for?
Just to add to the effect. Okay.
Is this the abominable NG appearance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, where's the... Alright guys, thanks for sticking around. Good number of people here. Love if someone could give us a rundown of what's been discussed so far. We're gonna come and we're gonna have some more discussions now. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, I present to you. Can I have a drum roll, please? Anyone?
Hang on.
MG on camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is one of my casual outfits. I wear this to protest sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very summer outfit.
Yeah. You know, this is, I mean, I get a lot of trouble from the police when I dress like this. I don't know why when I dress like this, but anyway.
I don't know, the only thing missing is like, you forgot your Antifa label.
It doesn't exactly inspire hope or encouragement, this outfit, does it? Anyway, good to see you guys. What do we got going on in the comments, Mrs. MG?
No comments.
Oh, okay.
No one's
Flop.
in.
Big flop.
We flop.
Wow. Well, Ivan and I have known each other now for about 2 years. And yeah, we've been through a lot, seen a lot. It's been an interesting time. Yeah.
Been a very interesting time, hasn't it?
What
And
do
it
you-
just gets more and more interesting, like, just when you think people can't, go any further than the bottom when they're bottomed out, that they find a new bottom. Like, they find a new level underneath the level that's down there. And it never ceases to amaze me. I'm like, okay, I thought that would take the cake, but now there's more.
Yeah.
Like, what next? So, we're staying tuned of like, what are they going to think of next? Like, I watched something on AUM's live stream, the barbecue they had last weekend. I think they had a barbecue at a monthly meetup at Flagstaff Gardens. And on the feed, they had a bunch of furries there, a bunch of people dressed up as animals and that.
Oh.
There, right? And I'm thinking, what about the people who don't really know anything about that? Like, I kind of heard something about it somewhere. I must have, but because I know what it is. When someone said what it was and I saw the picture, I went, okay, so it is a thing. I wonder what people who didn't know walking around thinking, is that they filming a Disney movie in Melbourne? That's what you'd be thinking if you didn't know what was going
The
on.
masses who have no clue about.
And how long did they stay there? Because it's probably warm and all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? If you see the guy like years ago, so the guy running around in a Hector the Cat suit or one of those animal suits, and you'd see them take it off later on after a summer day in Melbourne, and they would be drenched in sweat.
Yeah.
Be drowning in sweat.
This outfit makes me look like a blimp.
A blimp.
Yeah. That's not in the comments. That's just my.
No, I know what a
observation
blimp
myself.
looks like, and you don't look like a blimp. You just look like Antifa, who lost his other 100 members. Oh, sorry, other 10 members.
Which Avenger is MG? All right. So what do we got? We got amazing testimony, Michael. We've missed a bit in the chat. Michael Conroy, Anna, the day I decided God and Jesus was real was when I had a dream of billions of people standing in wall of fire fueled by anger and jealousy. Wow.
Wow,
That is pretty amazing.
that's a good one.
What else we got? No grace, just using the evidence given by science, blah, blah, blah. Science is easily corruptible. We can convert if you're honest. Welcome to the clown planet, the land of common stupidity. Yeah. You can trust him with your life, he'll not forsake you, blah, blah, blah. So I'm in Israel. Yeah, so what else is going on?
Well, we're gonna before we left, I'll bring it back. I'll jog your memory because I think it's a little bit walled out at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a bit warm.
You're a bit walled out at the moment. Someone tied a sheep to your head.
Let me just get some music happening here too. Ambient. Oh, this song's called Baby's Room. That's what this room's gonna be.
Is that going to go while we're talking?
Is that alright?
I don't mind. But we're going to discuss this week's damage to the project.
Yeah.
And watching the comment section in, I guess the so-called performer that was on it. I don't even remember their name. Oh, I do remember their name, but I don't even want to mention them or even promote them. They can go promote themselves. They've got enough promotion as it is. Being degenerate, but just some of the things that were said and the comments, people were really getting upset about the joke that he made about Christ on the cross, right? That people got really angry about, right? But they forgot to mention, like, that, we've seen that before. That's a common thing, it's always going to be, right? People are always going to use that to try and wind you up, right? And I've seen it so often, it's just like, nah, nice try. But what really was offensive was the double standard. Because there was a rapper this week that got kicked off his label for complaining about that mural and really losing it on a YouTube video and just absolutely saying, I've had enough of this. I've just had enough of being bombarded with this rubbish. And I'm not going to take it anymore. And so, of course, they're like, sorry, you don't have a job now. These guys give some fake apology and they're back to work. It's like, oh, come on. That I found more offensive, even though we're used to it. We've seen it so often, that double standard that they use all the time. And we're so sick and tired of it. But what that performer said too was they didn't even mention that either. No one even mentioned it. So I don't know if there was anyone who is a godly person in any of those comment sections. Maybe they don't exist in Twitter or it might have been on the Facebook page. I can't remember which one.
Comments as well. They go in those comment sections.
Oh yeah.
If you're lucky enough to even get a comment up, it's usually taken down pretty quickly as well.
I know, but you think the negative ones, there was a lot of negative ones that they get rid of them, they were left up there, so I don't know. I don't know whether they were doing that, like I think the guy was that narcissistic, he just loved the negative attention.
Yeah.
But anyway, what he said about creation in that comment, if you watched part of the interview, and I did watch that section of it, I thought, let's see what this guy's got to say about it, and he goes, I don't know what these people got a problem with, they come well after, like we date well before God. He actually said that, our persuasion, I'll call it, I won't go into the name itself, but that it existed before God. And I thought, what a preposterous thing to say. Did he ever read Genesis?
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're saying like, we existed, and then actually this place existed well before God came here. But I think what he was referring to was Christ.
It's hard to
see. I think that's what he might have been referring to, which I got confused on. It's like, hang on, how can you say something like that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to bag something,
it's tricky because it's hard to tell whether they're just so arrogant and open now with their horrible beliefs because they know that everyone agrees with them, or if they're like trying to push us all on purpose and go too far on purpose. It's hard to tell because, and I mean, the project apparently has terrible ratings and the ratings just get worse and worse anyway, so it's like...
What was I saying to you before? I said, you look up, if you do a Google search on project ratings, you hear crickets.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think, Mrs. MG?
Project Runnings, I haven't heard of it.
Ratings.
Ratings.
Like the TV ratings, like how well they're doing.
Oh, I thought, yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, I zoned out. I was looking at the comments.
What's up? MG kidnapping spree. No, I haven't been kidnapped. As you all know, MG is not only my secret identity, but there are also multiple MGs. So far, there are 3 MGs known to, and then there's Ivan.
I'm one. I was accused of being an MG.
Yeah, someone thought that you were MG for a while. It's
I
kind of
always thought I was a
like
Mustang,
Phantom.
but
Yeah.
or a Corvette. I don't know. It was an MG.
Now MG and Ivan are in the same room together, so
It's crazy.
It's great stuff. But anyway, back on to the topic.
Like the
This
Phantom.
week's
You remember this comic, The
shenanigans.
Phantom?
This week's shenanigans that went on the project.
You remember this?
Oh yeah.
This is like MG's kind of like a journalistic phantom. You know, that's what this is all about.
You know what I'd like to see one day? You know what I'd really like to see one day?
Yeah,
A comic with like a comic made with MG.
that'd be pretty cool.
We have a comic strip,
And I would like to explain as well to the viewers, some of whom may not know, that the whole point of this channel is it's not meant to be about me. I've seen people in the freedom movement constantly. That was actually unintentional.
Oh right, I thought it was. Oh okay.
No. Constantly like make their channel or make their thing about themselves. Like I'm sure you've seen plenty of these like live streams at protests where people be live streaming and they're like, oh, you know, look at all these people here, but their face is taking up 75% of the frame. You know, and you can't even see what they're supposed to be live streaming. I hated that from the start. And I tried to not make it about ego. And of course, this silly little stunt will probably like attract even more attention. And it was meant to not, anyway, it's whatever. But the point is, it's not about me. But I've now kind of made it about this silly outfit. So, one of the comments we got when we sat down was, which Avenger is MG? So you're an Avenger too, so that's kind of cool.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, which one
Like
would I
a
be?
hero. Ivan looks like a hero, right?
Which one? Which one would I be?
I don't
I was a
know.
bit Captain Tie-Dye or something.
And you something. Destroy theology. God is the force of good. Squabbling over Ukraine. Israel Folau, Essendon Football Club. Yeah. So anyway.
Anyway, back to the project. I haven't finished laying the boot into it. I haven't finished laying the boot on it because they particularly grind my gears. Those guys. This is not the first time they've done these kind of stunts, you know, and brought degenerates on there to start carrying on like, who knows what. But the fact that they apologise in their fake apology, you have to say it's a fake apology, you know, didn't look real because they still didn't take it seriously, and they had to apologise to the Muslims first. Now that says a lot about how their understanding of what they were doing, because they knew what they were doing. They knew that if they didn't apologise to them, there would have been repercussions, and there would have been violent repercussions too. They know that. So they picked a soft target anyway. They picked a soft target, and then they insulted again, thinking that they can get away with it the second time around. You know, let's have fun with them the second time around. It's like, well, you know what I think about this whole thing? Rather than get upset with it, right? I'm not upset with anything that they've done. I just find it amusing. I find it so amusing that, you know, we should have been breaking out the popcorn, because I think they've just basically done themselves. That's the end of these guys. That's the finish of this rotten show. Because they're probably just going to live in denial with one viewer from now on. And they'll still promote this thing, you know, and that's what amuses me about this, that they still live in this denial. They've lost their audience because people can't stand their lack of integrity, their lack of morals, and they're totally devoid of any real humour.
It's interesting because it's not actually entertainment, it's propaganda.
Exactly
And
right, yeah.
It's a formula that's designed to pretend to be entertainment while just brainwashing people. This we've talked about on this channel before, this formula of like lie, joke, lie, joke, you know? They'll say
it's
some
cookie
big
cutter
lie,
stuff, yeah.
and then they'll say some other big lie, and then they'll say, hey, and by the way, here's a cute kitten. And so you don't actually have time to process what they're telling you. You only really have time to just accept it. Because when they show you the cute kitten, it's like, that tricks your brain and makes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to
makes
take
you
it
not take
seriously
it
while-
seriously.
Yeah.
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 It makes you not take what they're talking about seriously.
Exactly, and that's a finely tuned formula that they implement on purpose. It's used on shows like Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, like all these like infotainment type shows. which is such a huge part of this agenda because it brainwashes so many people, and it actually doesn't matter to them that their ratings are going down and down, because as long as they can stay on the air, the masses who are watching, they assume that everyone else likes this show, and so they just believe what they see on it, from absolute hacks like Waleed Ali and people like that who are just like such liars. I mean, they're the biggest liars on television. It's not hooked up anymore.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Oh
really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's alright.
Yeah. Can't stand the project. Never could.
Well, yeah, it is basically just offensive propaganda,
Yeah.
and you wonder like who's sponsoring that kind of stuff. You know? Well, we know who's sponsoring it.
Rothschilds.
Well,
Well, this is steaming me up. I think I'm going to get off camera so I can take off this. But we've got a good comment there from what do you call it? Where's the mouse? I can't see properly. Where's it gone? Michael Brown, MG's been kidnapped. Blah blah blah. Your voice gives it away. That's right, you got me. Richard McLean. I'm glad MG never lets anyone pull the wool over his eyes. That's true, because I just cut little eye holes.
you know what's so sad about that comment? That's still funnier than the project.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway,
and nobody got hurt. Nobody got. Oh, actually, he might be getting dehydrated.
you know, I'm going to be honest here. Apart from the fact that I'm sweltering and sweaty, I thought this would be kind of a funny stunt. But now I feel like I'm giving off Kanye West vibes. You know, on friggin' Alex Jones. I'm not trying to do that, everyone, alright? Praise the Lord. I love Jesus Christ. I love God. Alright. I'm not trying to do some weird Balenciaga type thing. This was literally just meant to be a funny gag, and now I regret it. My face is covered in sweat.
Actually, I had a dream about it. It's actually my fault. So if anybody's going to rag anybody, you can blame me, because I came here tonight and I was the one who gave him the idea, because I had a dream about it last night. I was thinking about this interview we were going to do tonight, and I dreamt that he had this white kind of wrestler kind of headgear on, you know, and it looked really weird, and he sat down next to me and spoke, and when I told him about it, he went, yeah, wouldn't that be fun, you know, wouldn't that be a great idea? But apparently it didn't turn out that way, so it's all my fault.
I hope that as the years go on, the idea of MG can live on, and that it never becomes about one person, you know. And this channel's got to be about the gospel. It's got to be about the gospel and exposing evil. So there's going to be plenty more of that exposing evil, but you know, as much as I'd love to have all the attention on me, it's not the point.
No.
It's not the point. Alright, what else we got? Saw your vid from last Sunday, you got stuff off your face. Get that stuff off your face before you smother yourself, lol. What? Fergan Freshness, g'day. He says Kanye? No, see, that's, oh.
What was that?
Kanye.
Oh, you got...
I'm not trying to do the Kanye thing. Anyway, that was. Can we talk about that for a second? Have you seen that? The interview with Alex Jones, Kanye West?
I'm not sure. I think I caught a bit of it, but I just found it so melodramatic and
it was creepy,
and it was
man.
just weird. Yeah, it was just weird. Like,
he's up there to discredit Christians. You know,
Yeah.
he starts talking about Hitler and all this wacky stuff, and you know, it's just. He's designed to make us all look like crazies, just like he's, like you were saying, this is MG, how when he did all his Christian albums and whatever, all the imagery, all the visuals of the music videos and whatever are designed to look like a cult, to make us look like a cult, you know?
Yeah, when he did that, I don't know what it was, think concert or something with Justin Bieber and Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
Who is a proclaimed Satanist.
Yeah.
And he's doing two things, or his puppeteers are doing two things, I don't know. Making Christianity look like a cult, so the younger people are thinking that Christianity is a cult.
Yep.
And also making Christians look like right-wing terrorists.
Yeah,
so that,
yeah. That's the
with
next
the-
stage of the plan.
Yeah, because it's the next stage of
And
the
I'm
plan.
really
They
not
have a
helping
reason.
that image right now. At all. Oh, man. Have I messed up?
No, but you know, like, it's a good.
And the other thing is, no, forgot.
What other thing?
Something about Kanye West. Oh yeah, most people don't understand that it's not about religion. It's about you and God.
Well, it's about a relationship.
Relationship.
It's all about relationships. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Oh, I'm gonna take this thing off. So there you go, guys.
There's your cameo.
There's my cameo.
I'll have my
Silliness.
glasses back now, thanks.
Silliness. All right.
You've actually made them criminal now. You've made them an accessory to a crime.
My apologies. My apologies.
I'll have to hand these in tomorrow.
All right. Oh boy. Oh. Oh, that's better.
Hey, speaking of Antifa, you want to talk about what went on at one of these protests that I saw well before I ran into you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it, right?
Here's some glassware.
What is that? MG Dawn. Right? Now, seriously.
Yeah. Before it turns into a slapstick.
Not that I was there, but I just saw what happened.
Yeah.
Not that, you know, we were anywhere where we shouldn't have been.
Can I grab my cup of tea?
Oh.
Yeah. Alright.
Yeah, not that I was anywhere where I shouldn't have been at the time, but I did view something there one day. Don't know how I saw it, but I did see it. And there was a guy in an Antifa shirt with a flagpole, and he was poking a horse, one of the police horses with it. And he had his mate standing there with a camera getting the money shot. And he got the money shot. And that was the news. That was on Channel 7 News. That was the big story for that day.
Wow.
Not that 15,000 people marched up from the shrine and got chased around the shrine and got chased around in circles by Benny Hill's cohorts.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on the news. That was the only thing.
I remember there was family members that I knew that were complaining about it, going, "Oh, those bunch of so-and-sos and blah, blah, blah." And it was a full-on discredit job for that whole day. And it just totally distorted reality.
Yeah.
And I've seen that same guy too. He's a distinctive dude. He did it other times as well. I saw him do some other things. Like, he was one of those guys that was provoking police. You know, these people would show up and they were just deliberately just provoking things, making things erupt into a fisticuff. So then there could be a reaction to it. So there was a lot of that go on. You know, we saw heaps of that go on. 2021 as well. You know, there was something with was it Auditing Australia?
Yeah.
He got pushed over because he was kind of lagging behind the rest of them. They kind of pushed him, and they did it to Nick Patterson too. Someone explaining that what they did to Nick Patterson was explaining it to my wife and saying, "Look, these guys ambushed the dude. You know, they ambushed him. There was no reason for it.
Yeah.
And it was just an unprovoked thing. They were doing what they were asked to do, and they were leaving.
Yeah.
They were told they got a move on order, and so it was just a vendetta, really. They were just getting. It was like a revenge attack. That's what it looked like. And the camera footage said it all. When you hear some of those guys talking about it, there he is. That's him. Let's go and get him. You know? And it's like a gang of people. Like, who we got employed by the state, by our money, our taxpayer money, and they're acting like gangs that I used to see down in Dandenong when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, that's him. Let's go get him. Like, I'm like,
That's
what?
right.
Like, pack of gangsters. Wow, I just couldn't believe I saw that, you know. But it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't surprise me that they did that, because I've had interactions with them before. Like I was saying to Mrs. MG, that, you know, I used to try them out. I'd see how aggressive they're going to be, you know, like what I could probably get away with. And once you push it to a point where you knew you were going to get smacking, it was time to, you know, back off.
Yeah.
But these guys had a hair trigger.
And they're all still there working. They still got jobs.
Well, I had some fun with them outside the Salvation Army there, when Damien Richardson and Michael Griffiths were there one day, and they asked me to show up and play some music.
I remember that. And
It was on a Wednesday morning early, and there's only like a handful of people
yeah,
there, but all these police show up, you know, and
I remember that. And they're questioning people and
well, they got me, no, they did to me there. You know what they did to me? I was at the front of this big iron gate that no one was using, and they came up to me and they said, "Oh, you got to move.
yeah,
You've got to go over here." And they kind of moved me across onto kind of the edge of the pavement near the road near a parked car.
yeah,
And then while I was there, they were asking questions of, I think it might have been Damien, and they're asking him, "Oh, we didn't hear about this. What's going on? You know, like, where was this advertised? You know, in other words, where was the information for this?"
Mm.
And Damien turned around and said to him, "I guess we're using carrier pigeon now."
yeah. I remember that.
and then the police guy's giving him this frown look, and then there was a pigeon standing, and he pointed to it, and he went, "Look, there's one now." And the cop just went, "Oh." But then they show up. Then they show up with the camera, right?
Yeah,
They showed up and started pointing that camera what they were doing to a lot of the times that they show up, and I don't know exactly what the purpose of that was, whether it was intimidation or whether they were just wanting to count how many people were there. But the guy was standing there, and I walked straight up to him because he annoyed me that much, and I just got in his face because I just got sick and tired of him just hassling us. And I said, "Why don't you stay up the road there?" I said, "Why don't you go and arrest some real criminals?" And we'll point to the parliament.
yeah.
And he just gave me this blank look. I said, "What do you give me a blank look for?" And I said, "It's us now, and then you and your family next."
Yeah.
I said, "What, you think you're going to get left alone?"
They'll learn that the hard way.
Yeah, but yeah. They just had this kind of lights on, but the switch was broken.
Mm.
Which, I don't know what's more scary. Someone who's clueless with running around with a gun being told they can get away with it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, should we, guys? Do you have any last questions for
We're going to wind it up.
for Ivan? Maybe we should, because
Yeah.
I got 5.5 hours sleep last night.
Yeah. I got a big day tomorrow.
If I stay up now, then. Hey Dash, that's it. We're talking about the real Noah's Ark. Ron Wyatt. Have you heard of him?
Who?
Absolute mind blower. This archaeologist guy.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it. I've watched these documentaries. I believe it that he's found Noah's Ark.
Really?
Absolute mind blower. And of
Well, I found out
course,
where David's kingdom
these
was.
things. Well,
No.
they keep finding evidence, archaeological evidence that irrefutably backs up parts of the Bible.
Mm.
But it doesn't hit the mainstream because they don't want it to hit the mainstream. Like, for example, here's an interesting one for you viewers. A lot of people like to protest, you know, or like to disagree with God commanding the Israelites to kill people at times in the Old Testament and go and make war and destroy this village and blah, blah, blah. Well, they don't like to mention the fact that these are societies that sacrifice children and torture children and rape and murder and all this kind of stuff, lawless, satanic, demonic societies.
Mm.
And often God would give people in those societies every chance to get out of there, you know, before like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Nineveh.
So wicked. Nineveh, right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but they keep finding archaeological evidence, irrefutable archaeological evidence of Canaanite high places, which are their
Sodom and
places where
Gomorrah?
they do the
They
sacrifices.
found that too.
Oh, yeah, right.
They found evidence.
Hearing that, right?
Yeah.
And there's charred parts that have been like melted down to glass, like the stone's been charred
Yeah.
by some divine
They found evidence.
wrath.
They found evidence that they know that look, it is proof.
Mm.
You know, they've said that it is proof that the place existed, and that what happened.
Exactly. And the real Mount Sinai, I think this Ron Wyatt guy's found as well, but you won't hear about this in the mainstream. But the fact is, like, God isn't asking us to believe crazy things with no evidence. You know, God isn't asking us to have faith in nothing.
I just love the most favourite
Amen.
book. The most favourite book that gets picked on to try and rip anybody who's a believer of God a new one is usually the book of Genesis. The mainstream, I've seen the mainstream media attack the book of Genesis unmercifully because of its symbolic language.
Yeah.
And take it so far out of context that it's just ludicrous to go, look, okay, so you want to be ignorant.
Yeah.
In other words, you show basically anybody who has an understanding of the significance of who the audience it was meant for and who wrote it probably would have been Moses. All right, and who it was for. The Israelites, they understood that language.
Yeah.
So they would have known what he was talking about. Right? So the symbology is irrelevant, but it's a convenient target. That it gets targeted and it gets deliberately taken out of context so that they can destroy the rest of it and go, well, okay, that one doesn't make sense to me because it's got all sorts of, it's got all sorts of nonsensical things that I'm ignorant of because I have no idea about context.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of course you've got no context, so of course you're not gonna understand why it was written the way it was written.
Yeah.
But it was an easy target, I noticed it was like the most easiest target, which you think about it, right? It tells the whole story of creation.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's a very significant target, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, the foundation.
100%.
Oh, the foundation, like.
Even in Genesis, this is in Genesis. Mr. T's just added that Wyatt also found chariots in the Red Sea.
Huh.
Mind blowing.
Mm.
This is the consistent thing that I see is just if you really are seeking the truth, you find God and you keep finding God, and then you get closer and closer to God. And that's if you're seeking the truth. If you're just looking for entertainment or, interesting theories that back up your already held beliefs or whatever, you gain nothing. But if you're seeking the truth, and that means you're ready that when you find something that's inconvenient, that challenges you, you accept it because it's the truth. If you're seeking the truth, you find God.
Yeah, it's like that Bible verse where God says, if you seek me with all your heart, then you shall find me.
Yeah. Amen.
I just love the scripture that says, like the first steps to wisdom is the actual belief in a God.
Yeah, fear of God.
Fear of it, but the first stage in wisdom
Yeah.
is actually believing that there is one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Instead of naively believing that you're the highest or like.
I don't know, I kind of like
Amen,
this preacher from the Seventh-day Adventist used to really love called Doug Batchelor. And some of the stuff that he used to talk about was he opened up the book, The Keys to the Symbols of the Book of Revelation. He had some good studies on that. But some of the things he said about, like, if you believe, that everything was random, he goes, no wonder certain people are dying in dissipation. Like God looked down and said, look, my people, they're dying through lack of knowledge. Because that lack of knowledge of why they exist. If you think about it, if you're told you're random, you mean nothing, you're just some random thing that's been thrown here just for the sake of it, you have no purpose, no meaning, no nothing. Of course, what's that going to do to a person? What's it going to do to their inside? What's it going to do to their attitude, the way they're going to live their life? It affects them profoundly to think, okay, everything's just random, it's absolutely pointless.
Yeah, 100%.
Everything's absolutely pointless. I might as well take a heap of ice, run around beating people with a stick for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. That's right.
And he said, no wonder there's so many of these types of problems en masse in cities. You look in cities now, they're getting worse. There's become this kind of decay.
Yeah.
It starts with that. It starts with being told you're nothing.
Mr. T says, imagine believing you're a monkey. Yeah. I love monkeys, but then they ain't my uncle. I love monkeys, but I tell you what, they're not my grandfather. They ain't my grandpappy. I'll put on a silly voice, but I do mean that. I ain't descended from no ape. I used to make fun of Christians who didn't believe in evolution. I used to think, look at those stupid Christians. And now I'm one of them. I won't tell you something. You can believe you come from a monkey, but I ain't gonna believe you.
I don't know. Look, my favourite joke is, to my wife.
Amen, it does.
Is like if I was ever going to believe in, like any Darwin theory, the theory of evolution, I think the only thing that would probably bring me close to maybe questioning it, that it could be true, is when you walk into Flinders Street Station, the men's. That could be described as maybe the monkey case.
That's where the missing link is. Richard McLean says, if evolution's true, then I'm a monkey's uncle.
I'd like to see your nephews. Are they macaques?
Oh, well, God bless you all. 40 votes in the poll. 77% of the viewers on this stream are Christian, or at least people who voted. 3% are atheist, 5% are Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, 15% are other. Well, welcome and thank you for sticking around, our dear beloved atheists, Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, and others. We love you. Please stick around and God bless you. And to all the rest of you, we love you too.
Darn tootin'.
Oh. Well, God bless you, everyone. Thanks for watching. Ivan, any last thoughts?
Any last thoughts? I think I'm all out.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and tolerating our bit of whimsy, our bit of lightheartedness, and our serious look at ourselves and our journey with God.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Lovely chatting.
And remember, DML says, and remember, jail Dan Andrews.
That's what we started off with in the chat.
Yeah, true.
What? Child down Andrews.
True. We started with DML saying that. Nicely timed. All right. God bless everyone. Bye.
Goodbye now.